Chapter 91. Taxation in the Open, Robbery in Secret. It was dawn, and a vast team slowly walked on the rugged mountain road of Jackdaw Ridge. The narrow road that can only accommodate 2 or 3 horses in parallel forced dozens of people dressed in knights at the front of the team to lead their horses to walk. From the flags raised by the entourage behind them and the family emblem on the saddle of the cloak, the team was under the command of Earl of Fagin from Grizzlies. The horses equipped by these knights are long-maned horses specialized in the St. Valen capital. They have extremely explosive running power and are much larger than ordinary horses. It is quite difficult to walk on the steep mountain path. Earl of Fagin's knights looked extraordinary, with brand new and shiny armor paired with exquisite family patterns embroidered on the cloak behind, and a dark red gold silk belt tied around her waist. There are a total of 200 such elite knights under the command of the Grizzly Earl. This is also an Earl family with fiefs. It has accumulated several generations of elite armed forces to be trained. After all, even the Royal Knights of St. Valen have only 500 highly trained elite knights. Leading is the Baron of Steve, the nephew of Count Fagin, who is also a member of the Knights of Grizzlies. The Baron, who had no grace at this moment, was roaring loudly at the sparse team behind him, urging them to speed up their pace. In order to strengthen the momentum of this tax troop, they also brought in more than 200 mercenaries and militia to make up the numbers and allocated cheap leather armor and various inferior weapons to them. This group of people had no discipline and was sparse. Walking on the mountain road, chatting loudly and making noise, scattering and lengthening the entire team, causing the knights and entourages in the front to stop from time to time and wait for the team behind to follow. Hisser Baron, the slightly fat tax collector, gasped slightly, trying to pull the horse's reins and approach Steve. According to the people of the Town Chamber of Commerce, after crossing the Jackdaw Ridge, and going to the wasteland, he went to the wasteland after climbing over the Jackdaw Ridge and going to the you can reach the territory of the mage Harvey for about a day. He scratched his head and asked in an inquiring tone, "Are we resting at the foot of the North Slope mountain overnight and waiting for the next morning to enter the territory to meet the Lord, or?" Steve sneered, "Lord? He doesn't even have the title of nobleman, he is just a junior mage, and the undead mage that the Union doesn't like." He waved his hand gently, signaling the knights and entourages who were following behind him to stop and rest for a while, waiting for the follow-up troops to follow, and he walked forward with the tax collector for a while, away from the crowd behind him. "You don't think that we were mobilizing our troops to run to this wasteland where birds do not shit? It was really to collect the pioneering tax of more than 1,000 gold pounds, right?" Steve said in a light tone. The tax collector is also an old fry over 50 years old and quickly whispered, "So did the Count believe that rumor?" In the pioneer territory of the northern wasteland, gold mines were suspected to have been discovered. This rumor was actually half a year ago, and I had no idea why it was secretly spread in Grizzly Castle. Many little nobles without fiefdoms were discussing it privately. The man who had a hot mind crossed the border mountains and went to the north. The young mage who opened the fiefdom in the wasteland was accidentally discovered a gold mine on the wasteland. He seemed to have indeed gained huge benefits because of this. In the following 6 months, he spent various large chambers of commerce, transporting and purchasing various commodities and food supplies to the territory. This made the Grizzly Earl unable to sit still. Especially after learning that the other party had also recruited a large number of wasteland refugees to enrich their territory, it was almost certain that the pioneering order he issued at will may have accidentally been confirmed. It brought immeasurable huge wealth to the other party. Recruiting refugees, buying and building territory. Steve sneered, "It's fine if others don't know it, but can't you calculate this account? A junior mage with no background, in just over half a year, where did you get such a huge amount of money?" The tax collector nodded, "That's true, but all his commodity purchases are directly handed over to the Longshee Chamber of Commerce for handling. That is Orland's leading chamber of commerce. It's too strict and we can't find any news at all." "It doesn't matter. The Chamber of Commerce is also driven by interests. You can go wherever you have money." Steve said carelessly, "When we go and take over his territory, we can naturally understand that he quickly becomes rich in a short period of time. It's a secret." "Taking over the territory? Your count is planning?" The tax collector was stunned. Although he didn't say it directly, it was self-evident. "Will the Federation sit idly? We dare not offend them easily." The pioneering leader was invaded by the evil orcs. The Lord, as the spellcaster, was outnumbered and unfortunately died with the leaders. "What does it have to do with us? We received the rescue information and went to rescue the rescue team that was one step late. Steve shrugged from the Baron, with a hint of viciousness in his words. Nympho. The sun gradually rose to the middle of the sky, and Steve and his group saw from a distance that the winding upward mountain road seemed to appear as the outline of a small camp fortress, which was not very conspicuous under the cover of dense woods. Hisser Baron. There are wooden thorn barricades and guard posts in front of us, and we also saw the territory boundary marker. A knight entourage responsible for leading the way in front rushed back to report. Soldiers are stationed behind the barricades and on the sentry towers, and they hold that we have weapons, and we don't seem to be welcome. It seems that they have received the news in advance. They have their own spies in Grizzly Castle and Jackdaw Town. Stewie smiled. There is no need to draw swords immediately. Let me go up and negotiate with them first. The others can wait for my order and wait for the opportunity to act. This time, Earl Fagin waved his hand and asked him to bring 30 elite knights to take over the other party's territory. Among them, there are several mid-level knights who come from knight families and have awakened their blood power. The force of any one of them is enough to defeat more than 10 ordinary mercenaries and militiamen. Everyone got on the horse and slowly came to the small camp roadblock that blocked the mountain road. Before they opened their mouths to challenge, they saw several militiamen wearing only black cotton uniforms walking out of the camp. The knights on horseback saw that the other party did not even have the most rudimentary leather armor, and was carrying a strange long-handled weapon on his back. There was no tip of the gun, just like a fire stick, and they all showed extremely disdainful expressions. This is the territory of Lord Harvey. May I ask what you are doing here? We have not received any news of visitors entering the territory in advance. The leading militiaman is a short-haired young man who looks less than 20 years old. He has a clear voice and a smile on his face. He looks quite polite and likable. No mistake, one sentence, one content, 1-6, 1-9, one book, one bar. Stevie sat upright on the horse, holding the reins with one hand and slightly raising his chin, and replied arrogantly, "We are the tax collection team under the order of Lord Grizzly Castle, Lord Earl Fagin, to Mr. Harvey's pioneering territory to collect territory taxes. Please let us go immediately and don't delay our journey." On the surface, there are less than 30 militiamen stationed in this camp who don't even have complete armor and weapons. Although it is not a very troublesome thing to take action directly, he doesn't want to waste too much time in this mountain camp, which will prevent him from reaching the pioneering territory before nightfall. It is the best choice to use the identity of the Earl to force the other party to let us go directly. The leading militiaman still had a pleasing smile on his face. He asked the squire beside him for the tax order personally issued by the Earl, and carefully confirmed the seal and notes on it. This young militiaman can actually read? Stewie frowned slightly and looked at the tax collector. Both of them felt a little incredible. After reading the document, the other party carefully folded it again, handed it back to the squire with both hands, and then raised his head and smiled at Stewie. Lord Harvey has learned about the Earl's tax order, but because of the long distance between the two places, he has not had time to send the tax to Grizzly Castle. He turned around and waved with a smile, and 2 black-clad militiamen came up with a small wooden box and placed it on the ground in front of the knight's horse. "This is the tax that the Lord has prepared long ago. Please count it in front of you, and we can deliver it directly." Chapter 92. This is the tax that the Lord has prepared long ago. Please check it out in person and we can just hand it over. The young militia-led politely bowed to the Stevie tax collector, leaving behind a small box full of gold pounds on the ground and preparing to turn around and return to the camp. The tax collector was so nervous that he couldn't help coughing after being caught by this sudden scene, and looked at Steve with a little panic. "Hisser Baron, what should I do, this?" The messenger approached Steve's horse and asked in a hurry. "I originally thought that the other party would not accept this unreasonable tax order at all, and was planning to use this as the main excuse for attack. Who knew that before entering the pioneer leadership, he prepared taxes early and waited on the border. Got on." Steve also blushed slightly, gritted his teeth and thought for a moment, and immediately shouted loudly to the militia who was returning to the camp. "Stop!" He also turned around and looked around the cavalry team behind him, nodding slightly to signal to the others. The knights immediately pulled out their sharp sword from their waists with a clang. The young militia who had returned to the camp barricade turned around and looked at the knights sitting on the horse's back and pulled out their swords. "Sir, the taxes have been paid in full. What are you doing?" Steve didn't care about the extra noble demeanor at this moment, and shouted loudly, "I want to meet Lord Harvey, you can let it go immediately, otherwise." The young militia immediately turned cold and responded lightly, the Count only has the right to collect taxes and has no jurisdiction. Don't you know the laws of the principality? Steve grinned and completely broke up. Humph, the Earl has received a secret report. The undead mage Harvey is secretly conducting bloody magic experiments in the pioneering world to harm innocent civilians. We are ordered to come and clear you. He waved forward with one hand holding the sword, and all the knights immediately dismounted on the spot, approaching the camp gate with their sharp swords. The narrow mountain road is not conducive to the knights' charge, so they can only choose to dismount and fight in the field. However, facing the dozens of untouchable militias who are not even equipped with armor and sharp blades, it may only take half an hour to solve them all. The militia who had negotiated with them changed their faces sharply and immediately rushed into the camp, leaning down and hiding behind the roadblocks made of sandbags. It was indeed a group of mobs, who didn't even have the courage to resist, so they hurried behind the sandbag and waited to die. A Steve's close-up knight burst into laughter, rushed to the front of the team with his horse, leaped up suddenly with his long sword, and was about to cross the first roadblock to attack the militia hiding behind him. After a sandbag about 4 or 5 steps away from him, a black militia suddenly stood up and pointed the strange fire stick behind him. Baron Steve and others who were behind saw a white light flashing suddenly on the stick. As the white light flashed, his close-up knight who rushed in front suddenly shook his body and was stunned. He fell on the sandbag and stopped moving again. Smart Tommy hid behind the sandbag cover, raised his gun and aimed at the tall and armed knights who were only a few dozen steps away from him, slowly breathed out, and then pulled the trigger without hesitation. Another knight who rushed in the front, a thumb-sized hole suddenly appeared in the center of the armor on his chest. In an instant, blood surged out. The knight rushed forward a few more steps with inertia before falling to the ground and disappeared. Sound. Tommy turned his head and ordered to the other soldiers, wait until they get closer and then shoot, so that the hit rate is higher and less bullets are wasted, so Captain Vaughn will not hurt again. Although he said this, Tommy's palm was sweating all over his hands. This is different from the evil orcs he faced at the outpost of the river valley. This time they were facing their own human race. But the first time he killed someone with his own hands. No. He gritted his teeth and spat hard on the ground, feeling a little angry at his sudden softness. When did the nobles regard lowly refugees as similar? When they fled thousands of miles away, they crossed the Shenji Mountains with difficulty and came to the southern border, seeking the protection and retention of local nobles. But what awaits them is the patrol troops stationed on the border mercilessly drive away and massacre. The nobles were afraid that they would bring plagues and diseases to their territory, and they did not want to waste a piece of food to help them. Tommy thought to himself that their trip was to plunder Lord Harvey's territory, to rob the wealth and food accumulated by the hard work of the people in all territories, and to return to the tragic situation of being displaced in the morning and evening. His 2-story single-family building, delicious fried chicken in the convenience market, brand new and straight military uniforms for winter and summer, generous military pay of up to 120 yuan a month, and the one next door every time he sees him, Diane, a young girl with admiration expression on her face. All these beautiful people and things that already belong to him will disappear. This is something that no pioneer soldier can accept. Tommy secretly wiped the sweat from his palms on the corner of his clothes. At this moment, only Lord Harvey gave himself the order. Any enemy who dares to take the initiative to invade the territory must fight back and eliminate without hesitation. All soldiers, shoot freely. Another tall knight stood out from the crowd and rushed towards the nearest territory soldiers. Tommy raised his gun and aimed decisively. Before he could pull the trigger, a puff of blood mist suddenly burst out from the knight's neck, and then he fell to the ground and began to twitch. It was the soldier on the sentry tower who fired before him. No mistake. Stevie, who was surrounded by the knights in the middle of the crowd and forced to charge in foot battle, didn't understand what was going on at all. Why did those stupid and lowly militiamen just gently lift that strange fire stick, and the elite knights under his command, who were heavily armored and fully armed, fell to the ground like fragile reeds and stopped moving. His heart skipped a beat, and he immediately shouted to warn his knights, "Be careful! That damn stick is loaded with a crossbow! Be careful to dodge!" A knight who was in the front subconsciously rolled and dodged as soon as he heard Stewie's warning. But the invisible crossbow still brushed past his waist, and tore open the armor on his waist, taking away a large piece of flesh and blood protected inside. Blood gushed out from the gap in the armor. The knight subconsciously wanted to reach out to cover the wound, but found that the torn wound was wider than his palm. Another invisible crossbow shot towards the charging knights, hitting a knight standing in front of Stewie, smashing his shoulder wearing iron armor, and blood mixed with broken flesh sprayed all over Baron Stewie's head and face. Fear instantly gripped Stewie's heart like a claw, and the invisible crossbow arrows were like the sickle swung casually by the god of death, quickly harvesting the lives of his elite knights. This invisible and intangible means of terror obviously shocked all the knights, including Stewie, and some began to try to retreat, even though they were only a few dozen steps away from attacking the sentry post. Behind the sandbag roadblock less than 1 meter high at the gate of the sentry camp, every black-clad militia holding a fire stick was as scary as a monster in the eyes of everyone. Stewie had already lost all his fighting spirit at this moment, and shouted loudly to greet a group of knights, who surrounded him and began to slowly retreat. Suddenly, there was a chaotic noise from the back, which made his heart sink instantly. The mercenaries and militiamen who were sparsely left behind the knights' team just caught up at this time, blocking dozens of knights and their tall war horses who were about to retreat on the narrow mountain road. They were forced to become living targets in the eyes of the black-clad militiamen at the mountain outpost in front of them. Chapter 93. The mercenaries and militia teams that suddenly rushed towards the knights did not block Steve and others on the mountain road for no reason. In the chaotic crowd, Steve saw dozens of metal monsters terrifying like giant spiders suddenly appear below the gentle slope of the mountain road, driving the stragglers in his team toward the hillside. Occasionally, some slower soldiers fell behind, and were immediately rushed forward by these spider monsters, stabbed them into their bodies with their sharp insect feet, and then dragged them into the bushes next to the mountain path. Located in the camp on the upper slope of the mountain road, the terrifying invisible crossbow arrow attack seemed to suddenly slow down the offensive. Steve and the 2 blood knights around him looked at each other in chaos. Almost at the same time, I realized that the opportunity to counterattack was coming. Their invisible crossbow arrows and bows seemed to have been used up. The 2 blood knights focused heavily at Steve and immediately turned around and rushed towards the gate of the mountaintop camp dozens of steps away. Steve immediately followed closely behind them with his few remaining knight entourages. But at this moment, dozens of black-clothed soldiers stood up from behind the sandbag on the camp roadblock, almost at the same time, and pointed the fire stick inlaid with silver-white metal in his hands straight at Steve's group. The return cavalry team. No. Leave down and hide. Before Steve finished speaking, he saw several thumb-sized blood holes appearing on the armor on the backs of the knights and entourages who were rushing to the front. The charging knights immediately showed up. A large area fell down instantly. Another row of more than 10 black-clad soldiers stood up, and blood burst out from the people and horses in the knights' team, falling down like harvesting wheat. The only person who rushed to the front was left with the fastest blood knight who escaped the attack by chance. He crossed the sandbag barricade with one hand and waved the sword in his hand at a terrified black soldier, neatly. Cut off one of the opponent's arms, but at the same time, 2 fire sticks also hit his waist on both sides. The flesh and blood body seemed so fragile and soft under the protection of steel armor. Before the bloodline knight could swing his sword to defend, the armor and flesh splattered instantly on his waist, which made him break into 2 pieces as if he was cut in half. The knight's team finally collapsed. The knights who fell behind the stormtroopers released the reins of the horse, squeezed away the mercenaries rushing down the hillside with all their might, and began to flee into the dense forest on the side of the mountain road. Mercenaries and militia naturally saw the bloody defeat of the knight team in front, so they naturally would not be willing to take the lead and take the initiative to die. They have always worked hard for money. The main knights have all retreated, so of course they have to run more. Quick! The team of nearly 300 people was crowded on the narrow mountain road, with the terrifying god of death who kept harvesting their lives in the front and back. The situation quickly became uncontrollable. There were dozens of strong horses in the crowd, and many were squeezed in the chaos. The fallen man was ruthlessly trampled by horses, and the wailing sounded throughout the hillside. The black-clad militia were lined up in neat rows in the mountaintop camp and began to slowly advance towards the chaotic defeated team. They began to clean up the battlefield. Nympho. This was the first time after Tommy was promoted to squad leader, he led his 50 soldiers to fight head-on battles with the noble knights and mercenaries. Many people have escaped into the mountains, and the spider beasts have scattered and chased and suppressed them. Both of them were trampled to death by their horses, not at the gun of the magic gun, and I don't know whether they were lucky or unlucky. Collapse their armor and weapons, and don't miss a piece of metal armor. Lord Reiner has repeatedly reminded us that we are short of metal materials now. Tommy stretched out one foot and gently stepped on the gorgeous cloak that died in battle, stained by blood and soil. These nobles are just like this. Nympho. The battle that broke out on the ridge of Jackdaw Ridge began at noon. Harvey received the news that he had won a great victory in the battle, after waking up after a meal. 50 soldiers equipped with magic guns and 30 tarantula alchemy beasts faced more than 30 noble knights dressed in heavy armor and more than 200 civilian mercenaries. There is no mistake. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 619, 1 book, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, a book. At the cost of only 2 serious injuries, they achieved a crushing victory. Harvey was very satisfied with the result. He carefully read the battle report written by the grassroots non-commissioned officers and found it funny that there were frequent spelling and grammatical errors. The knights sent by Earl Fagin had to give up the horseback charge and choose to dismount and fight on foot on the narrow mountain road due to the terrain, which also gave the territory soldiers the best opportunity to quickly counterattack. Until the end, this group of elite knights failed to break through the road barrier defense line set up on the top of the mountain and fight hand-to-hand with the territory soldiers. That was the situation Harvey was most reluctant to see. These civilian soldiers under his command, who had only been trained for less than half a year, were far inferior to those skilled knights in close combat. The report also mentioned that a few soldiers had adverse reactions such as hand tremors, nausea, and vomiting because they shot and killed their own kind for the first time. The symptoms were not serious. Harvey believed that after experiencing it a few more times, they would gradually get used to this bloody battlefield scene. Earl Fagin will receive news of his elite troops being wiped out in less than a month. Harvey touched his chin and muttered to himself, even if he sends more people, I will not be afraid at all, but I still have to stand on the high ground of morality and public opinion in advance. Along with the battle report, there was also a magic stone for recording images. This was what Harvey had instructed the soldiers on the top of the mountain to activate with an alchemical instrument as soon as they came into contact with the enemy. It only recorded the video of the enemy meeting and talking with his non-commissioned officers, paying taxes, and turning hostile on the spot, but it was enough to submit to the Federation as ironclad evidence to accuse Earl Fagin of violating the laws of the Principality and going back on his word, attempting to infringe on the personal and property safety of a spellcaster. Chapter 94. Donnie, the affairs officer of the Jackdaws Federation branch, received a letter from the postman. Why is it him again? Donnie angrily snatched his sparse hair on his head. Hasn't he moved out of Jackdaw Town? The news that the necromancer Harvey received the pioneering order from the Earl of Grizzly Castle and moved out of Jackdaw Town to the northern wasteland to pioneer the wilderness has long been spreading the small circle of spellcasters in the Grizzly Corps. Most of the casters who don't like the necromancer will relentlessly ridicule their behavior. A junior mage does not devote himself to magic research and improves his magic level. He even whimsically applied for a pioneering order and ran to the crisis-ridden northern wasteland just to survive the addiction of a noble in the fiefdom. This extremely stupid behavior is simply unheard of in the world of spellcasters. Donnie is actually not the kind of old-school spellcaster who has a discriminatory attitude towards the necromancer. When Harvey was framed by Bulko and attacked by the church witch hunters, he still had a faint sympathy for the other party. Of course, the Federation's handling of this incident was fair in the end. Although Bulko cleared the charge of colluding with the church to attack his colleagues during the investigation at the headquarters, he was forced to lose his post and deported to his hometown of Grizzly's Castle. Unemployed. The church also suffered this loss indisputable. Not only did it put aside and publicly apologize to the Federation, it also conducted a thorough review and rotation of the elderly in the church branch of Jackdaw Town, all of which were replaced by new faces. Finally, the casters who were in a turbulent manner exclaimed a sigh of anger. But Harvey, who was originally a direct victim in this matter, received almost no benefits and compensation. He simply signed a letter of apology from the Federation and the church. Donnie felt it was not worth it for the other party, but then he thought about his identity as the undead mage, so he could only sigh. After carefully reading the content of the letter Harvey sent this time, Donnie couldn't help but breathe. This Master Harvey is really going to make a big mess at any time. This is a letter of complaint, and the target of the report was the Lord of Grizzly Castle, Earl Fagin himself. The letter is sharply told about how Earl Fagin rebelled against the law of the Principality after issuing a pioneering order to escape from the law of the fiefdom and temporarily imposed a huge amount of fief tax on him. After Harvey honestly paid this unreasonable tax, he suddenly made a slander for engaging in taboo magic experiments in his fiefdom, and sent elite knights and hundreds of mercenaries to attack Harvey's territory. The above unreasonable behaviors and allegations against Harvey, the spellcaster, did not inform the Federation in advance, nor did they submit any application for investigation. Instead, Earl Fagin directly used force on his own initiative. A magic stone with the letter also came, which clearly records how Earl Figen's family knights negotiated taxes with the militia in Harvey's territory, and how they suddenly spoke up for the unwarranted accusations and then launched them directly. The whole process of armed attack. The image content in the magic stone of course cannot be tampered with. This is simply a foregone conclusion. Is Count Figen crazy? Donnie stood up decisively from the desk, walked out of the office quickly, and called a clerk in charge of the spell messenger. Immediately copy the content of the letter with this photo demon stone. Those who have been sent to days will always go, don't delay for a moment. The struggles and contradictions between internal factions between spellcasters are common. But the Federation will never allow any nobles to easily provoke their class status in the southern continent. Nympho. After nightfall, the lights were brightly lit in Earl Figen's house in Grizzly Castle, and a group of gorgeously dressed nobles danced in the huge banquet hall. The band invited by the Earl from the capital were playing hard. Those who can attend the banquet are all nobles with great reputation and family status. I heard that the Countess loves to hold concert-like dinners and sends invitations to the banquet almost every week. This grand occasion, as the focus of the banquet and the host, Count Figen himself was unexpectedly absent tonight. However, the Count was not physically ill or delayed in government affairs. At this moment, he was staying in the private study room upstairs of the banquet hall with several close servants, holding a letter and furious. The letter also sent a blood-stained piece of breastplate. The carved Earl family emblem was directly destroyed by a hole that penetrated the armor, causing the entire carefully crafted armor to lose its original beauty. Alas! Earl Figen hit the desk with a heavy punch, chewing his teeth, and paired with his strong and tall figure and slightly curly black hair, he was like a grizzly bear in a state of rage. Steve is dead. This damn necromancer actually killed a noble knight with a title. There has always been an unwritten practice in power struggles among nobles. No matter which side wins, it is impossible to kill them all. This involves the issue of family reputation and decent identity. Whether you put down your weapons and surrender voluntarily, or you are unfortunately captured in the battle, you should receive the preferential treatment that the nobles deserve, waiting for the other family to raise ransom or conduct hostage exchanges. The clerk on the side took the thin letter from the Earl's generous palm, roughly scanned the entire letter, and said with fear, "My lord, from the content of the letter, the Baron suddenly took the initiative to attack after the other party had paid the tax in full. He also publicly declared that he was carrying your order, accusing the other party of conducting bloody experiments and harming civilians." Earl Figen gritted his teeth and said, "Brainless thing. Thinking that he has a sure win, he doesn't care about tearing his face with the other party in my name and making a big mess for me. No mistake, one post, one content, one book, one bar." Earl Figen knew very well that this matter was indeed initiated by himself, and it was also because of the gossip that spread among the nobles that aroused a strong greed in him. But now this plan of attacking in the name of taxation has completely failed, and the other party also has ironclad evidence accusing him of violating the laws of the principality and provoking war without reason. If he directly reports this to the Union, I'm afraid that within 3 days, Grizzly Castle will be visited by battle mages and magic affairs investigators. Perhaps the capital will also be directly pressured by the Union, and at that time, it will definitely be able to treat itself as a sacrifice and bear the anger of the Union. A grey-haired old man who had not spoken in the study suddenly coughed lightly. Count Figen immediately turned his head to look at him and asked with a hint of hope in his tone, "Master Angel, what do you think of the handling of this matter?" The old man called Master by Count Figen is a spellcaster consultant that his family has always employed. He is not directly affiliated with the Union, but comes from a prestigious spellcaster family in Dias. Angel coughed lightly and said lightly, "Since the late Lord Stewie claimed that this necromancer had killed civilians, why don't we just confirm this crime? Anyway, the reputation of necromancers in the Union has never been very good. I also learned by chance a few days ago that this mage Harvey is not the first time to be suspected and investigated like this." He walked slowly to the window and thought for a while before continuing, "Because of the previous investigation, he had a bad relationship with Mr. Bacot, who was in charge of the case review at the time. The other party even lost his position in the Union because of this incident. Now he is staying at home in Grizzly Castle with nothing to do. Investigation and conviction without evidence is indeed a false accusation, but if the evidence is irrefutable, then he deserves it." Count Figen instantly understood the hints in Angel's words and waved his hand to order the clerk. "Invite Mr. Bacot to come to the Earl's mansion as a guest immediately." Chapter 95. After nearly a month of odd jobs in the pioneering leadership, Yurio finally found a relatively formal job. This is also entirely due to Mr. Kolun, who works as a teacher in a public school, accidentally learned from his colleagues that the warehousing area of the territory is now in a shortage of a warehouse management responsible for staging goods due to the bumper harvest in autumn and increased production in the factory. Member. Since this job is not a long-term contract, it only takes 3 months to work, the salary is not very generous, and it is a difficult night shift. The municipal officials in charge of the warehouse area are too lazy to publish it, which has always been ignored. This made Yurio pick up a hole inexplicably. Fortunately, the official in charge of warehousing management did not dislike him for breaking his hand. Anyway, as long as he reads, he can complete the basic signature and stamping process and patrol and inspect it on time at night according to the prescribed time. The warehouse he was in charge of guarding and managing was specially collected and stored some scrap metal parts and materials. Every time the metal camel beasts brought goods, there were 2 soldiers wearing well-dressed uniforms and carrying weapons around them. Although the wooden boxes containing goods were sealed and no one was allowed to open them at will, Yurio knew very well that the things contained in those boxes might be scrapped weapons eliminated by the army. There are many people in the territory who have witnessed the soldiers' target shooting competitions with their own eyes. They swore that the weapons used by the soldiers were powerful magic weapons designed and made by the Lord. It can release terrifying lightning and thunder, pierce the body of the evil orc. Yurio didn't have the chance to see it with his own eyes, but it didn't prevent him from having a natural desire and envy. If I could have such a powerful magic weapon at the beginning, I would not have been captured in the battle with the evil orcs, and I would not have been cut off one arm and turned into this now disabled look. I really want to see how powerful this rumored magic gun is. It would be even better if I could hold it in my hand and experience it. All night duty warehouse administrators need to stay in the warehouse where they are responsible for. There is a small compartment specially separated for temporary rest, with a simple wooden bed inside. Before the patrol time was set at night, Yurio could only lie on the hard wooden bed and tossed and turned to kill time. Suddenly, a sound of footsteps came from outside, and then the door of the compartment was pushed open and someone walked in quietly. "Yurio, have you slept?" the visitor asked in a low voice. Yurio recognized the other party's voice and was a colleague who was in charge of managing the warehouse with him, named Wolver. However, the other party is responsible for the daytime management and has no interaction with himself during working hours. He only has the opportunity to meet and chat for a few times when he handed over the shift in the morning and evening. "Wolver? Why are you here? Is there something wrong with the registration of in and out of the warehouse during the day?" Yurio turned over and asked anxiously before he could light the candle. As soon as he finished speaking, he found that there was a person behind Wolver, but he couldn't see clearly in the darkness. Wolver led the person behind him into the room, gently covered the door, and raised his hand to hold Yurio's hand that took out the flint and was about to light the candle. "Worry, listen to me." He bent over to Yurio's ear sitting beside the bed. "I have a good job. Do you want to do it with me? If you succeed, you have a chance to be the one who was named a knight." "Ah? What, the enthroned knight?" Yurio was stunned for a moment and couldn't even close his mouth. "Yes, you are also from the Southern Territory. I heard you were an apprentice knight." Wolver lowered his voice. "I am like you, and I am also from the Southern Territory, and I am not from the Northern Territory of the Untouchables in the territory." "Same." He turned his head and pointed to the stranger who had been standing behind him and remained silent, adding, "My companion is also from the South, Grizzly Castle, you should have heard of it." Yurio's heart thumped and he stammered, "So, what's the matter?" Lord Harvey offended a big man from Grizzly's castle, so the adult wanted to give him some small lessons to let him know who is the real person in the territory of Grizzlies. Are you going to attack the Lord?" Yurio was so shocked that he almost couldn't speak. "Lord is a spellcaster, you are so brave." Wolver sneered, "How is it possible? We can't deal with a mage, and there are metal monster guards in his castle, so we can't get close to it at all. So we just need to sneak into his lab and add some ingredients in it. Damn, this must be a long-planned plan. They actually turned their elbows out and cooperated with outsiders to cheat their lords." Yurio felt a chill, so he had to change the subject first, and at the same time he thought desperately about how to get out of the way to report the news. "But the laboratory is built on the ground of the Lord's castle, and there are metal guards guarding day and night, so how can we get in? This is why I want you to make a fortune together." Wolver smiled proudly. "Haven, have you done some tricks of cleaning ventilation ducts before?" You should know that pipe leads to underground experiments. Is it room? There is no mistake. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 619, 1 book, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, a book. He paused and continued, after the matter is completed, we will immediately leave the Pioneer and lead to the Grizzly Castle. That lord will never treat us badly. You can also be directly awarded the title of a formal knight, which is much more noble than the identity of an apprentice knight. It is still enthroned by the great nobles themselves. Julio gritted his teeth and remained silent. The way of knight in his heart was to be brave enough to fight against evil and not fear difficulties to protect the weak, rather than betray his lord for the sake of personal grudges among the nobles and become a shameful traitor. Even though he broke his hand, he would never be able to put on his armor again in his life and fight against the evil and barbaric aliens on a war horse, and he would not have the chance to be promoted from an apprentice knight to a formal knight. But the words that saved his father Kolun, who had repeatedly saved him, suddenly echoed in his ears. So what if you break a hand? As long as you stick to your inner justice, don't be a useless person, or a evil person, why can't you call him a knight? Right. Glory does not come from the canonization of the nobles, but from the persistence in the heart. Uriel raised his head firmly, ready to refuse, and at the same time he glanced at a short knife he placed next to the pillow, a skinning knife he often used when he went out to hunt small animals. The man who had been standing behind Wolver without saying anything suddenly stepped forward, and a long sword with a flashing light popped out from under his black cloak, pressing straight against Uriel's chest. It seems you are a little hesitant. Why don't I make this decision for you? Have you forgotten that you only have one hand? A disabled guy. Chapter 96. The ventilation ducts of the underground laboratory of the Lord's Castle are connected to the complex sewage pipes in the territory. At the beginning of the construction planning, Harvey and others directly set the discharge outlet of domestic sewage downstream of the river, but as the number of residents in the territory increased, the human and animal feces and sewage produced also increased exponentially. If they were dumped into the river all at once, within half a year, the river close to the residential area would be polluted beyond recognition. In addition, with the gradual expansion of the scale of farm cultivation, the trial use of natural fertilizers was officially put on the agenda. Reiner simply set up a huge open-air composting pit on the edge of the west wall, so that most of the human and animal feces in the entire territory were concentrated here for composting and fermentation. Harvey's laboratory sewage ventilation ducts were also built close to the composting pit and connected to the outside of the city wall, discharging all kinds of toxic waste generated by the laboratory directly into the rotten water swamp outside the territory. Ventilation and sewage pipes need to be cleaned regularly to avoid blockage and backflow. But this job is not a popular one, so there has never been a fixed person to take charge of the cleaning. Only those who have just joined the territory and have not yet obtained a stable work contract are willing to do it. Uriel has done it many times. As long as he is willing to get into the narrow and dirty and smelly pipes, he can earn a generous salary of 3 gold yuan in just half a day of cleaning work. At this moment, he was being held at the waist by a long sword, and 2 people with bad intentions were led to the open-air composting pit. There are only people working in the composting field during the day. You can't even see a ghost here at night because it's so damn smelly. Wolfer complained in a low voice while walking. Uriel walked silently with his head down, but he was thinking quickly about how to get out. He didn't have a suitable weapon, and he couldn't deal with the attacks of 2 people at the same time with one hand. There was almost no possibility of escape on the ground. The only way is to get to the sewage ventilation duct and use the intricate roads inside to escape, but how to find a way to warn the Lord's guards? Those metal monsters stationed in the castle can't understand human language, and shouting alone may not work. Is the exit of the sewage pipe here? Wolfer retched twice, holding his nose and standing in front of a circular hole that can only be entered by bending over. The cloaked man holding a long sword poked Uriel's waist with the tip of the sword, forcing him to answer. Yes, this is the exit of the sewage pipe, but the exhaust duct leading to the castle laboratory is buried deep underground, and only a few entrances are left in the sewage pipe for easy maintenance and cleaning, connecting the 2 pipes together. This is also the main reason why they chose to enter the exhaust duct from the sewage pipe. The real main exit of the exhaust duct is set outside the city wall, and a solid metal fence is built to block it. Without alchemical explosives or using magic bombardment, ordinary people can't break through and enter. You lead the way, don't leave me more than 3 steps away, otherwise. The cloaked man pushed the long sword against Uriel's back again, and the tip of the sword pierced through his thick cotton coat, causing him to tremble slightly because of the pain. Just as the three of them fell silent and prepared to bend down and get into the sewer pipe, a sound of footsteps suddenly came from above their heads. Someone approached the compost pit. The footsteps soon stopped at the edge of the pit, followed by a rustling sound of clothes rubbing, and then a clear sound of water falling from the sky, splashing on the ground not far from the three people at the bottom of the pit. A strong smell of urine hit me in the face. The cloaked man raised his head slightly and found that the person standing at the high pit humming a tune and urinating leisurely was a young man dressed as a soldier in black clothes and black pants, so he took out a delicate short crossbow from his waist, and with the sparse moonlight above his head, he raised his hand and pulled the trigger to shoot at the man. A muffled groan sounded, and then the man immediately fell into the pit, hitting the ground with a thud, and died immediately without even struggling. "What are you doing? If you alarm the soldiers patrolling the city wall, our big plan will be ruined." Wolfer was shocked and angry, and cursed the cloaked man in a low voice. The cloaked man laughed sinisterly and pointed at the long-handled weapon on the back of the soldier who fell to the ground. "Is this the magic weapon you mentioned?" He walked over and took it off the dead man and handed it to Wolfer. "If it is really as powerful as you said, why not use it to add some bigger reward chips to our mission?" Wolfer took the spear in a daze. "You mean, directly solve the core of the problem for the adults?" The two seemed to understand at the same time and laughed in a low voice together. The three of them walked through the slippery, muddy, and smelly sewer for about a quarter of an hour, and finally came to the inspection port that connected the two pipes that Uriel mentioned. Putting their heads into the dark hole, they could still vaguely hear the whistling sound of the blower. "It's here. Climb in about 10 meters and you'll be in the ventilation duct." This time, the cloaked man didn't let Uriel lead the way. He left Wolfer to watch Uriel with a gun, and he lifted up his robe and crawled in first, and then let the remaining two follow. The space inside the ventilation duct was even narrower. The three of them crawled on their knees with great effort before they finally reached the end of the duct, where there was a locked iron fence, and a blazing white light could be seen through the gap in the fence. "That's the Lord's underground laboratory." The cloaked man turned around and signaled Wolfer with his eyes. The latter immediately quietly climbed to the fence and poked a bent wire into the keyhole and started to fiddle with it. Wolfer seemed to be particularly good at picking locks. It took no effort at all. He poked the lock open in just a few strokes. The cloaked man got out and slipped to the door along the boxes filled with materials and parts piled up in the corner, and looked out at the larger laboratory outside the door. Uriel was also forced out of the ventilation duct with a gun. At this moment, a chaotic sound of footsteps and voices suddenly came from the stairs of the laboratory door. Uriel's heart suddenly chilled. He recognized one of the voices, which was the voice of the Lord that was played on the bulletin board in the civic square from time to time with a magical device. At the same time, Wolfer raised the magic gun in his hand and aimed at the entrance of the stairs of the laboratory door according to the attack posture of the soldiers he secretly saw. Uriel could not care about more. While the two people in front of him were in a sneak attack posture, he saw the opportunity and pounced on Wolfer, while shouting loudly with all his strength to warn. "No mistake, one sentence, one content, 1-6, 1-9, one book, one bar. Lord, be careful. There is an assassin in the laboratory." Harvey heard this shout as soon as he walked into the laboratory. Before he could react, a starin beside him suddenly pulled him hard and pulled him behind him and covered him tightly with his solid metal body. Wolfer had never used a magic gun before, let alone the accuracy of shooting. Who knew that when he was pounced by Uriel, the energy beam that was originally off-target actually hit a starin by accident, and directly penetrated his shoulder and hit Harvey who was hiding behind him. "Damn it!" Stalin was shocked and angry. He immediately turned around and looked at Harvey who was shot. His heart had sunk to the bottom of the valley. His metal body couldn't withstand a shot from the magic gun. Harvey's thin flesh and blood body might be even more vulnerable. But he turned around and found Harvey standing behind him unscathed. The torn robe on his left chest clearly showed that he was shot, but strangely there was no trace of blood. Harvey narrowed his eyes slightly and quickly chanted a spell. An illusory and blurred figure immediately appeared behind the attacker. The 3-ring instant creative spell Mirror Curse. The dark curse mirror suddenly exploded on the spot. Countless black silk threads that seemed to have life broke away from the control of the phantom and rushed directly to the nearest cloaked man, drilling into his eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. "Ah!" The cloaked man dropped his sword, fell to the ground in pain and began to roll and wail. A sticky liquid of the same color suddenly began to seep out from under his dark robe, smearing the ground with a mess along the traces of his rolling and struggling. After a few breaths, the cloaked man's entire body melted into black water, leaving only a pile of dirty and greasy clothes on the ground. The moment Uriel threw Wolfer to the ground, he wanted to knock the magic gun in his hand away, but he didn't expect that he would still shoot him in the chaos. At this moment, he was wrestling with the opponent on the ground with one hand, and was accidentally stabbed in the chest by the dagger that Wolfer took out from his waist. It seemed that his lungs were injured, causing him to cough up a bunch of blood foam violently from his mouth. Two activated alchemy beasts quickly pounced and pinned the two people who were wrestling to the ground. Are the assassins fighting among themselves? Harvey slowly approached and muttered to himself in confusion. Before Uriel was seriously injured and lost consciousness, the last thought that appeared in his mind was, Lord, he is actually invulnerable to swords and guns. Chapter 97. Harvey changed into a mage robe that was shattered by a magic gun, and sat in front of the desk in the study, staring blankly. Just like the last time he was attacked by a witch hunter in Jackdaw Town, he still didn't expect that someone would dare to sneak into his territory and drill into the ventilation duct to kill him into the laboratory. Asterin almost lost his head by the magic gun, and his shoulders were directly penetrated through the entire alchemy arm and lost control. He is now undergoing emergency repairs from Reiner. Harvey touched his intact chest with a little fear, but, I obviously don't wear the Silver Moon Guardian ring, why can the magic gun be unharmed after hitting it? He couldn't help but recall the violent explosion caused by the beetle ore experiment in Jackdaw Town, which only shocked his protective mask, but his body was unharmed. Could it be the energy beam immune effect brought by time travelers? Then, am I not the innate magic bullet body? Having said that, Harvey didn't dare to really try to shoot himself with a magic gun again to verify this somewhat amazing idea. At least several of his assistants and subordinates would not agree at first, and would also ask Egno to prepare medicine for treatment of mental disorders and diseases to him on the spot. Who is the mastermind behind this attack? The Church's witch-hunting sect? Or the Earl of Fagin, whose nephew died? Or the insider of the Federation you offended before? Harvey pounded the table in annoyance. It was really outrageous. He moved out of Jackdaw Town and hid on the wasteland north of the Shenji Mountains. He would cause so much trouble, so he couldn't let him calmly. Is it developing in a lewd way? There was a chaotic sound of footsteps outside the study. Pierce, who had just returned to the territory from the Valley Outpost for a few days, pushed the door open and followed Egno, the head of the Territory Medical Hospital. Sir, the identity of the attacker has been basically found out. Egno and I interrogated the two living people in their own methods. The confessions are basically the same. They are both from the southern border, not wasteland refugees. People from the southern border? Harvey widened his eyes. The native southern tribe is not as loyal as the suffering refugees on the northern wastelands. He is highly loyal to him. It seems that he must pay attention to this group of people in the future, at least first, clean them up. Out your own army? He asked curiously. You each interrogated separately? What method did you use to make them speak? Pierce said lightly, I was responsible for the interrogation of the person who shot him. It was very simple. Cut his blood vessels and slowly let him experience the gradual loss of blood throughout his body. Well. Sorry, I couldn't help eating halfway. Once, you also said that you can't waste food. Egno interrupted with a smile and said, who is injured in the chest? You said in advance not to torture the confession, so I added some ingredients to the medicine he put on. Within 10 minutes, he honestly took all of himself. The secrets were shaking clean. Haha, I didn't expect that this guy is in his early 20s and is still a young man. Harvey covered his face and didn't want to listen anymore, so he quickly interrupted, so what? Did you ask? It was Earl of Fergen of Grizzlies who instructed them to sneak into the territory to implement the assassination plan. Pierce reported the matter in its original form. Among the two living people, the uninjured Wolver himself was a civilian who took the initiative to surrender, but he was bribed by the people sent by Earl Fagin. The person you killed on the spot was Earl Fagin's subordinate, a professionally trained death warrior. They originally planned to create evidence of false accusation in your laboratory so that Earl Fagin can take advantage of the problem. Pierce found a series of bloody experiments written by the man in the cloak. The paper of taboo magic, and several dark magic stones used to cast taboo curse. No, Earl Fagin has no channel to obtain these magic contents and materials that can be used to frame me. Harvey suddenly noticed something was wrong. There is a spellcaster behind him secretly handing him a knife. Harvey stared at the dark magic stones that Pierce placed on the table, and suddenly gritted his teeth and cursed, "Dog Bulko! What a ghost thing! No one can get these forbidden magic and dark magic stones except the insiders of the Federation, and the Castor family is no exception." Pierce looked at Harvey's flushed face with anger and quickly picked up a cup of warm water and handed it to him, then knelt on one knee. "Sir, whether it was my last time in Jackdaw Town or this time I let the assassin sneak into the laboratory, it was my negligence and I would like to ask for your punishment." Harvey took a sip of warm water and waved his hand and said, "No need to be like this. The last time the witch hunter was a habitual criminal who attacked the spellcaster. You can't help it. This time you just returned to the territory from the outpost, and I didn't go down by the order to send soldiers to guard the castle." He sighed quietly. It was also a major mistake that he did not set up alerts to alchemy beasts in the castle and laboratory. He was just guarding against external crises, but instead ignored the potential internal risks. "What happened to the assassin who took the initiative to warn me?" "They had internal conflicts in their uneven distribution of the spoils." Egno quickly explained, "No, he is not an accomplice of the attacker. He was forced to lead the way for the assassin because he was familiar with the path inside the sewer." Harvey nodded with satisfaction. It seemed that there were still many civilians in his territory who were looking forward to his own territory. "Healthy heals his injuries and bring them to see me when he recovers." Egno bowed slightly and then left the study, leaving Pierce alone. "There is no mistake. 1619, one book, a book." Harvey stood up and walked to Pierce, bent down and whispered to him, "Pick one of your soldiers with the best record, the strongest shooting and aiming ability, and the bright mind." He pulled Pierce up on the knees, patted his shoulder and encouraged him, "Go and pick out the people as soon as possible, it's best to bring them here to see me tomorrow. Remember, you must be a sharpshooter. I remember participating in the target shooting competition before. Those soldiers are good, they should have been promoted to grassroots officers now, right?" Pierce nodded and replied, "Yes, they were the first militia recruited in the territory and the first soldiers to start training magic guns." He raised his chest slightly and explained with a little proud pride, "Although these officers trained by me personally do not dare to boast that their shooting ability has reached a point of hitting 100 shots, they directly hit the evil orcs within 300 steps. There are many people who can easily do the head." Harvey knew that Pierce had always been cautious in speaking and would not boast about his abilities at will. "Yes, then you hurry up and pick people. If the target candidate is still stationed at the River Valley outpost, you must arrange for the war beast to send him back as soon as possible. Isn't it just a beheading operation? Earl Feigen is better at what he can do." Chapter 98. Wayne handed the reins of the horse in his hand to the hotel waiter who was bent over and leaned over. After thinking about it, he took out a few silver coins from his arms and threw them into the other party's arms. "Go and get some soybeans to feed your horses, and then have a room with windows on the street." The waiter nodded and bowed repeatedly, leading him to the room at the end of the second floor of the hotel, and asked him with a smile if he needed drinks and meals. Wayne remembered the repeated harsh instructions from Chief Pierce before departure, rolled his throat a few times, and replied, Just have white bread and fish soup." After the waiter closed the door and left, he sat on the edge of the bed, untied the leather package he had been carrying from his back, and spread it open on the bed. Wayne skillfully assembled the gun into shape, practiced repeatedly several times in the movement of simulating shooting and aiming, and then pulled out the soft cloth and wiped the gun body carefully, which was quite unwilling to let go. Thinking of the task that Chief Pierce gave to him, Wayne couldn't help but secretly raise the corners of his mouth and laughed proudly. This was his first time. He stood out in the competition with Vaughn and Duff and was directly selected by Chief Pierce. He knew very well that Vaughn and others actually surpassed themselves in terms of record and shooting ability, but they must have other advantages, so they were selected by the superiors as their first choice. Although the relationship between Wayne and Vaughn and others has eased a lot because of the private group of soldiers from new and old factions in the army, Wayne still feels secretly happy to be able to make the other party defeated in this competition. After calming down his mood, he closed his eyes and recalled carefully the target person who appeared in the magic stone that the Lord personally showed him. A man in his 40s has a medium-sized body, fair skin, slightly curly brown hair, wearing a pair of monocle glasses with golden silk edges, and two thin beards on his lips. He likes to wear the deep style of the Federation black mage robe, with silver embroidery patterns on the cuffs representing the intermediate caster. Bulko Kennard, today's task is to find his residence first and find out his daily activities tomorrow. Wayne opened the window and looked at the bustling crowds on the streets. Voice talked to himself. The commander is right, this is no different from hunting in the jungle. All are the same steps. Observe, track, lock, kill. Nympho. Earl Feigen paced back and forth in the study, complaining anxiously to Angel, the mage consultant beside him. Malik has been there for 5 days, why hasn't the news been sent back? He pointed to a letter placed on the desk and cursed in anger, that damn Necromancer has reported to the Federation as soon as possible. Humph, they did not attack me directly, but just sent me a letter of inquiry will be reported to the noble house sooner or later, and I am afraid. Angel narrowed his eyes slightly and said lightly, Your Excellency, don't be distracted from your own ranks. The Federation naturally cannot bypass the noble house to condemn you directly, so we still have enough time to complete the layout and get rid of our sins. Do you want to send another death warrior? Angel sighed and shook his head slowly, no need, it's too easy to alarm the enemy. Soon, Bako rushed over and was led into the Count's study by the waiter. Mr. Bako, can you ask Malik to take to the Pioneer, those evidence of crime really kill the accusation of the Necromancer? Earl, you are absolutely sure of this? These are taboo techniques and prohibited materials that are explicitly prohibited by the Federation. Humph, as long as your subordinates place it in a hidden place in the laboratory, wait for us to bring the Federations. If someone comes to investigate, he will definitely be inseparable from the relationship. What if the frame was not successful? The caster's laboratory is not so easy to sneak into. He is still a lord, so there will naturally be guards. Angel spoke and interrupted the Count's pessimistic conjecture. Sir, Malik is a mage entourage specially trained by my family. He is best at stealth and assassination in secret. Besides, don't we have an alternative plan? Earl Feigen's eyes lit up and he murmured, yes. There is another alternative plan. His face twitched and suddenly smiled grimly, if things are difficult, then find an opportunity to let Malik assassinate the other party. Just take a step to eradicate the roots. At this time, Bulko couldn't help but speak, the undead mage has 2 defensive weapons similar to combat-type alchemy bodies. He was accidentally attacked by the church witch hunter before, and he relied on that thing to save his life. Angel laughed and said, don't worry, unless he never leaves his residence and laboratory for the rest of his life, as long as he appears outside, Malik's poisoned short crossbow will never fail. It was a magical crossbow that also came from the Alchemy Secret Society. The bow and arrow were highly poisonous to blood-sealed throat, and the shooting range was 50 steps away. And isn't this just right? We can also push his accidental death onto the church, since they are currently purging witch hunters on a large scale. Angel said this, and he looked at Bako, who also hated the church, and they laughed out loud. No mistakes in one poem, one post, one content, 1/6, 1/9, one book, one bar. Wayne lay on the roof of a 2-story building, hiding his figure behind the thick chimney made of red bricks, and stared intently at the door of a luxurious building across the street below. Compared with the single-story or 2- or 3-story houses where civilians and wealthy businessmen live around, the Earl's mansion occupies a much larger area. The garden lawn with fountain sculptures in front of the main building of the mansion is almost as big as the square in front of the Lord's castle. 2 hours ago, he followed and witnessed the target person entering the Earl's mansion, and he has not come out until now. Wayne looked up at the sky and estimated that the sun would set in about an hour or 2. By then, it would be dark, which might hinder him from completing the task. But it didn't matter. If he couldn't do it today, he could still do it tomorrow. If he didn't have a chance tomorrow, he could still do it the day after tomorrow. He pulled at the grey blanket that was the same color as the roof tiles, revealing only a pair of focused eyes and the barrel of the extended magic gun, which was also wrapped with a grey-black linen bandage to cover the metal reflection. The target appeared. Just when Wayne was about to think that there would be no suitable opportunity today, Bako's short and fat figure suddenly appeared at the gate of the Earl's mansion. He stood on the stone steps and adjusted his collar with reserve, turning his head to look around, as if waiting for the carriage to be arranged for him to pick him up. Angel and the Earl's personal secretary, who were ordered by the Earl to personally send him out, stood behind Bako on the left and right, smiling and saying goodbye to each other. Mr. Bako, if this goes well, the Count will consider recommending you to Grand Duke Federico of Dias and hiring you as his exclusive spell-casting consultant. Angel promised Bako in a low voice. These private words of solicitation and promises naturally cannot be said by the Count, so it is most appropriate for him, the consultant, to convey them to the other party. Bako's face flashed a trace of imperceptible joy, and he quickly controlled his facial expression and inner excitement, and nodded reservedly to express his gratitude. Master Angel, please express my sincere gratitude to the Count for me, He only said half of his words, and his head suddenly exploded with a bang. Angel and the clerk, who were originally standing face to face with him, instantly became extremely terrified, and scarlet blood mixed with broken brain matter sprayed on their heads and faces. Chapter 99. Harvey, who was busy with various affairs in the Pioneer territory all day, missed 2 or 3 spellcaster forum exchanges. Finally, he took out a free time on Friday night and logged into the Magic Network forum before the exchange meeting started. Although the content of each exchange meeting would be recorded word for word by Unit 0 for Harvey to check at any time, as a forum administrator, he still needed to listen frequently and occasionally speak to maintain a tall image. Hand of Elements, praise Mr. Turing. Good evening, everyone. It was a familiar opening statement again. Before others joined the army of greetings, a message suddenly flashed and quickly appeared in the chat room. Stormwalker, everyone. I'm very sorry to interrupt your opening greetings. Harvey pulled the list of forum members and found that this was a new member invited by the initial members. The inviter was Captain Ghost. However, he rarely spoke in the exchange meeting, but he participated in the online auction and was quite active in the information exchange section. He often shared some insightful academic knowledge with other members for free. Stormwalker, I would like to ask the respected Mr. Turing, does this forum for Magic Netcasters have the purpose and concept of solidarity and mutual assistance among members? Harvey, who was suddenly called, felt a little puzzled, but others stopped speaking out of respect and politeness at this time, so he had to think for a moment and send a reply. Administrator Turing, you can expand the inclusiveness of the 4 principles of freedom, openness, tolerance, and anonymity to understand that when necessary, forum members should choose to unite and help each other to overcome difficulties. Stormwalker, thank you. Mr. Turing. Stormwalker, everyone, I want to disclose to you a bloody tragedy that happened in the capital of the Principality of Berkeley, Sycamore County. A genocide? Harvey couldn't help but narrow his eyes and looked at the text flashing on the screen in confusion. Why did such a thing have to be brought up in the forum exchange meeting? Did this spellcaster think this was the Union Tribunal? Spell shield at Mr. Stormwalker, if you are talking about the bloody mystery of the wizard family involving the church witch hunters, I have also heard about it recently. It's the witch hunters again. These dark rats in the church who are hiding in the dark and waiting for an opportunity are really haunting. Harvey smacked his lips and waited with interest for their subsequent exchanges. Stormwalker, yes, a church judge in Berkeley's capital, a high-ranking blood knight, attacked and killed a spellcaster of the Sebastian family for no reason. The Union and the church investigated and believed that the fight between the two sides was caused by personal conflicts, and directly determined that the judge killed the other party by mistake. Stormwalker, this is a naked exchange of interests and cover-up. The Sebastian family has always had a bad relationship with the conservative pro-church faction in the Union, resulting in the faction of the Union in Berkeley actually leaning towards the church in this incident, trying to brush it off. It seems that whether it is the church or the Union, the internal factional struggle is so fierce that they even do not hesitate to make obviously unfair behaviors for their own interests. Harvey saw this and basically guessed the cause and result of the incident, and couldn't help but sigh softly. Stormwalker, this is not the worst behavior. Soon after, the Sebastian family's ancestral home in Wutong County, where they specially trained young descendants, was suddenly attacked by a group of unidentified powerful enemies. The entire manor had 18 mage apprentices, 2 low-level spell-casting teachers, servants and assistants, a total of 39 people, and no one was spared. Son of Flame, it must have been done by those damn witch hunters. Those damned human scum. Magic Shield, the internal member of the Federation responsible for investigating the case, revealed that there were no signs of magic battles at the scene of the crime. Everyone died from direct attacks by weapons such as sharp blades. It is suspected that the target is indeed the Church Inquisition army. After all, only they can train so many bloodline knights. Stormwalker, having said that, there is no direct evidence to accuse, so this unsolved case has been shelved. The Sebastian family also sent people to LA to file complaints several times, but there was no progress. Spell Shield Fran McCaughlan looked at the fierce accusation of Stormwalker on the crystal screen and couldn't help sighing. Of course, there would be no progress in this case. The Federation was planning to use this as a bargaining chip to put pressure on the church to force the other party to give up part of the share of the magic stone mine in the Evil Moon Mountains. Compared with the huge benefits brought by the high-level magic stone veins, the death of a dozen or so apprentices of a small spellcaster family attached to the Federation is nothing. He thought about it and couldn't help typing a reply. Spell Shield, the Federation suspects that among the participants in this incident, there is a high-level knight with the blood talent of Forbidden Magic Realm. I can only reveal so much. Captain Ghost, I agree with Mr. Spell Shield. The blood talent of Forbidden Magic Realm, except for the direct line of the church, it seems that no other knight family has such a talent. It was the first time that Harvey had heard of this strange blood talent. Just from its name, it was not difficult to know that a blood knight with this talent was probably the natural enemy of all spellcasters. He could be called a natural witch hunter. Hand of Elements, obviously, isn't the glorious judge of the Alley Church a legendary bloodline knight with such talent? Stormwalker, everyone, one of the victims is one of my students. He is a member of the branch of the Sebastian family. He has studied with me for nearly 10 years. I am a young man who is very focused on academic research and is enthusiastic and kind. He was about to be promoted to a mid-level spellcaster. Because of the family's call, he temporarily returned to the academy to serve as a spell instructor. Unexpectedly. Stormwalker, I am currently in the demon battlefield, shouldering the combat mission of the Wizard Coalition. I can't get away in a short time. Therefore, I would like to ask for your help. I would like to ask you to give these church scum the due punishment. I am willing to pay a certain price for this, whether it is forum points or other things of equal value. I didn't expect that Mr. Stormwalker was a competent teacher who loved his students and was a man of temperament. But he couldn't get away and take action to avenge his students personally. I'm afraid it was not a combat mission on the surface, but the Federation had reached a tacit understanding with the Church to exchange some interests, so he was given a certain warning to prevent his subsequent fierce revenge. No mistakes, 1 post, 1 content, 1619, 1 book, 1 bar. Politicians who can use magic are still politicians, and they have bad water flowing in their stomachs, but not a drop less. Son of Flame, don't mention the price. If you can provide the specific location of the witch hunters, as long as it does not exceed the moving distance of the Continental Teleportation Array, I can help you once for free, but I need intelligence assistance. Earth-loving, I hold the same view. I am willing to provide recent intelligence on spellcasters and the Church in the Principality of Barclay. I hope it will be helpful in this matter. Astrologer, I have a good friend who is currently in the Principality of Barclay. He should be very interested in the revenge against the witch hunters of the Church. I will be responsible for conveying the message and contacting him. Mithril Unicorn, I am also willing to provide some help for this. Please contact me separately, Mr. Stormwalker. It seems that the spellcasters have very consistent views on this kind of conflict with the Church. Even though they usually form various factions and fight in the spellcaster forum, they are surprisingly consistent when it comes to external threats. Spell Shield at Mr. Scorching Lord, what do you think about this matter? Harvey's heart skipped a beat. He had actually been waiting for the attitude of this legendary spellcaster who was the most prestigious in the forum except for himself. After all, the other party was very likely a senior member of the Federation. Scorching Lord, I think that blood debt should be paid with blood. Scorching Lord, I wonder if Mr. Turing agrees? Harvey's mouth curled up slightly, knowing that the other party had been waiting for him to express his attitude. Administrator Turing, I fully respect your ideas. After all, this is the Magic Network Spellcaster Forum. Chapter 100. A middle-aged man with short dark red hair and a sturdy and tall figure walked slowly out of the Continental Teleportation Array of the Federation branch in the Barclay capital, carrying a delicate suitcase. Master Holden, hello. A waiter in a wizard apprentice uniform came forward and bowed to the other party. The branch president learned of your itinerary and asked me to wait here in advance. Fur Holden waved his hand impatiently. I don't have time to waste time communicating with that guy Zeralos. Hasn't he been humiliated enough by me at the Academic Court Council of Alley last year? He walked out quickly with his suitcase, and the waiter followed with a red face. Master Holden, the branch president just wants to invite you to dinner. No need, I need to fast and avoid alcohol recently, and those luxurious seafood, game, delicacies and wines will be left to Zeralos to enjoy. After saying that, he walked out of the building of the Federation branch without looking back, leaving the waiter standing at the door with a messy look. A affairs commissioner came forward and looked at the back of Fur, who quickly got on the carriage in confusion. Master Holden, is there any urgent business in Barclay's capital? I don't know, but don't ask around. The itinerary sent by the headquarters is sealed with a confidentiality seal. Fell sat in the Federation's special carriage, closing his eyes and resting without saying a word. The destination of the carriage was a beautiful manor located on the outskirts of the capital, which was also a residence specially set up by the Federation for high-level spellcasters to visit. As long as they are high-level spellcasters who work or are in the Federation, they can directly choose to stay in the manor under the name of the Federation, whether they are on official assignment or traveling to any country in the southern continent. Even if the real purpose of Fair's visit was to fight for others, he still had to do what he should do. All the itineraries were recorded in the Federation's register, which could also avoid many subsequent disputes and troubles. Although he was famous for his bad temper in the Federation, Fair still couldn't do such a stupid thing as getting out of the teleportation array and flying directly to the Barclay Royal Cathedral to hit someone on the head with a 7-ring fire explosion. As far as he knew, there was more than one high-ranking priest in Barclay. After arriving at the Spellcaster Manor, Fair was led by the waiter into a luxurious and spacious suite. In addition to the bedroom and living room, it was even equipped with a small magic laboratory and study. He put down the small suitcase he had been carrying and gently turned the lock with the reinforced seal magic on it. This time he didn't bring anything with him. The box only contained a few sharp-edged and crystal-clear fire element magic stones, high-level and high-quality disposable things, the kind that he didn't want to take back after bringing them here. There was also a tracking magic stone, which was a rare thing made by the Alchemy Exploration Society. After recording the target image, it can lock the opponent within a certain range, but it will immediately become invalid if it exceeds the range. Finally, there was a rather strange-shaped branch, like a charred branch that was repeatedly burned by a fierce fire. This was what Fair really cherished, his magic amplification artifact burning tree. Most of the elemental spellcasters who have reached the level of Fel actually don't pay much attention to the use of magic tools and other things to increase their combat power and magic power. After all, their magic patterns are almost full of powerful spell models, and they have almost reached the top ability to cast spells instantly with just their thoughts. But Fel is an outlier. He is not a research-type spellcaster who has always been engaged in spell analysis. Before he was 40 years old, he was a spellcaster who had been stationed in the Evil Moon Mountains for a long time and frequently fought with demon spellcasters in the Mage War group all day long. So he especially loves the high-yield and high-density spell-washing tactics. Even if he fights alone, he doesn't forget to put on a bunch of spell-amplifying effects on himself. When the enemy just throws out the first instant spell, he throws a bunch of pyroblasts, dragon flames, scorching fire, and fire crows at the enemy's face. In order to allow himself to happily engage in spell battles with the enemy, he also spent several years collecting a lot of very rare magic materials and made a certain degree of anti-magic transformation on his body, which made him stand out among the weak spellcasters of the Federation. After all, most battle mages can't do what he did, waving sandbag fists with blazing effects, rushing to the front of the demon priests, and fighting passionately with each other in close combat. Dong dong dong. A gentle knock on the door suddenly sounded. Fair closed the suitcase and walked to the door to turn the handle. Mr. Astrologer? No, are you his friend? The visitor saluted with an elegant gesture, then walked sideways into Fair's room. This time, the offline revenge action for Stormwalker was witnessed by Mr. Turing, and the participants signed identity confidentiality agreements, so there was no need to be afraid of exposing their identities. The friend of this astrologer happened to be a local spellcaster in Barclay, but his identity was kept secret, and Fel was too lazy to find out. You can call me the Eye of Illusion, haha, Mr. Son of Flame. I will also have the honor of joining the Spellcaster Forum soon, and look forward to communicating with you in the forum. Fel curled his lips, and it turned out that he was also a guy waiting in line to join the club. No mistakes in one post, one content, one book, one forum, 6, 9, and one post. He then put on the airs of an initial member of the forum and said modestly with a little pride, joining the forum is not an easy thing. Your invitation guarantor will pay a huge price, and it also needs to be unanimously approved by the administrator and all members of the forum. Mr. Eye of Illusion seemed to have a very mild temper. He did not feel offended by Fair's words at all. Instead, he answered quite sincerely, indeed, I participated in this action to express my goodwill to all members. Fair nodded and said frankly, there is another forum member who will participate in this matter, Mr. Mithril Unicorn. I haven't received his message yet. I don't know if he can meet us on time. Hearing this, Eye of Illusion immediately raised his left hand to show Fair a sea blue ring on his ring finger. Storage ring. Fair was stunned for a moment. Is this guy showing off his property to me? Mr. Mithril Unicorn, strictly speaking, has already met with me. He winked humorously. Fair was confused and didn't understand the hidden meaning of his words. The Eye of Illusion smiled and drove the magic power, casting a half-human high silver white metal jar from the storage ring. It was densely engraved with magic inscriptions that were constantly changing, but the strange thing was that the jar itself did not have any magic fluctuations. Hiss! What the hell is this? Fair stared at the jar device on the ground and turned it around a few times but could not see any clues. The Eye of Illusion smiled and explained, "This is the help provided by Mr. Unicorn, and it is also our greatest reliance for this operation, the anti-forbidden magic spell array." Chapter 101. At about midnight, Fair Hoden and the Eye of the Illusion received information from the forum member the Earth Fellows on time. Without any delay, the two of them immediately imposed a middle-level fourth ring concealment technique on themselves, then flew out of the window of the manor room and rushed straight to the destination where the information was displayed. There are many types of flying magic that only advanced spellcasters can learn and use, but each one consumes its own stored magic power and will generally not be easily used to rush the road if it is not a battle or emergency situation. Facing the biting cold wind in the sky at night, Fair and Eye of Phantom flew northwest to the manor, far away from the outskirts of the Buckley capital. The information provided by Mr. Earthfarers is very accurate. He obviously used the amplification magic weapon and used external force to fly to the wind to say to Fur, who was flying side by side with him, it was an abandoned mountain stream monastery of the church. It is also the main gathering point for witch hunters in the Buckley capital. Fair thought for a moment, the Earthlings are indeed very familiar with the whereabouts of the church. Haha, if it weren't for the magic exchanges with him on the forum many times before, I would have suspected that he was the spy who was inserted in the church. You are really too humorous. Eye of Illusion laughed. Tonight is the holy day for glorious believers. As the classical faction of the church, the witch hunters will definitely gather together to complete the midnight holy prayer ceremony, which is just convenient. We'll catch all in one place. Fair nodded. Very good, I'll leave it to you when setting up the anti-forbidden magic array outside the monastery. The two flew at high speed for about an hour and soon arrived near the mountain stream monastery and slowly landed in a dense forest not far from the monastery. A thick black flame was rapidly burning on Fair Holden's black maid short dress, but it did not emit a higher temperature, and it only formed an illusion shield surrounding the body outside the body. This is the general protection technique of the flame element system, the 5-ring magic black flame shield, which can last for 15 minutes and is immune to most physical damage without additional magic. The Eye of Illusion also activates its own protective magic, forming a blurred shadow outside the body that causes the light to distort. Fair turned his head and looked at it, slightly raised his lips. He had always had a sharp eye and had rich experience. He could tell at first that this was the force field magic that the arcane spellcaster was best at. It seemed that his temporary combat companion was an advanced arcane sorcerer. And he is a spellcaster who is good at transforming and force field magic. He released the instrument of the anti-forbidden magic array from the storage ring and properly placed it on an open space in the woods. Although this formation has a short maintenance time, it has a huge coverage range. After activation, it almost reaches the point of it can cover half of the valley where the monastery is located. We can only maintain the anti-forbidden demon field for 10 minutes, let's do it directly. The Eye of Illusion nodded at Fair. I am responsible for drawing out the witch hunters from the monastery, so that they will not be scattered and hidden in the monastery, and we will waste time pulling them out one by one to deal with them alone. As he said that, he squatted down, pressed his palms tightly against the ground, opened his mouth and began to recite the spell silently. He didn't use instant magic? Fair narrowed his eyes in surprise and looked at his companion's strange behavior in confusion. Could it be that the analytical model of this magic is too profound and complex, and he does not have the ability to engrave it in the magic pattern? Suddenly he felt invisible ripples spread out from the palms of the illusion eye, quickly leading into the ground, sweeping towards the monastery like a powerful wave lurking in the earth. Then he felt a little shaking on the ground, but it was not violent, so he couldn't stand steadily. When Fair looked up at the monastery not far away, he was surprised to find that the entire towering monastery was also shaking slightly with this frequency, and the shaking was getting bigger and bigger. The sound of bricks and stones rubbing against the ground, the intersecting glass and window edges, and the doors constantly opening and closing were heard in my ears. Simulation of earthquakes. Does Mr. Eye of Illusion want to directly shake the monastery and drive out the group of witch hunters? Unexpectedly, he looked pretty and elegant, with a gentle look. In fact, when dealing with things, he was even simpler and more crude than himself. Fur couldn't help but look at the illusion eye squatting on the ground and performing magic again, and found that even if he released the strongest amplification flame explosion technique, it would be impossible to blow up a monastery building without a protective array. At least 5 high-level elemental magic bombardment must be carried out to achieve the effect Mr. Eye of the Illusion has achieved. It's really a person who can't behave like a person. In the brightly lit monastery, a messy noise gradually came. Then the door suddenly opened, and a group of believers in pure white robes and priests wearing embroidered gold wire crowns staggered out from inside. Lord! It's an earthquake! Run! Help! I can't stand firm! Several bricks and stones fell from a high place and hit the heads of several lucky people running in front of the escaped crowd, making them fall to the ground and die in an instant. The windows on the monastery's exterior wall were broken in violent shaking, and the thunderous glass fragments were thrown down like raindrops, causing a wail from the crowd below. Someone was so anxious that he crashed out of the broken window on the second or third floor and fell to the ground on the first floor with a bang. That's about it, Mr. Son of Fire. It's up to you to perform next. The Eye of Illusion slowly retracted his hands from the ground and looked at Fur Holden standing beside him very calmly. I thought you were going to just shake down the monastery and be done with it. No mistake, 1 post, 1 content, 1 6, 1 9, 1 book, 1 bar. Hehe, if the monastery collapses, how can we count the hunting results of this operation? Are you going to dig out their bodies one by one with your hands? The Eye of Illusion seemed to be in a very happy mood and teased Fur. Fur immediately shut up and stopped discussing this issue with the other party. Humph, when this guy joins the forum, there will be plenty of opportunities to have an academic debate with him. He turned his eyes to the monastery and immediately locked onto a tall man in a priest's robe who was the last one to rush out of the gate. The blood power of the church in his body could not be suppressed and hidden under the perception of high-level spellcasters. A mid-level blood knight with the innate ability of Forbidden Magic Field. After he rushed out of the monastery, he was holding a sharp sword in his hand that was obviously flashing with enchanted light, and angrily scolded the believers and witch hunters who were in a mess. Suddenly, a strong magic wave came from the direction above his head, and the Blood Knight immediately looked up. Under the light of the silver moon lightly covered by dark clouds, a tall and strong man with black clothes and red hair was standing quietly in the sky. The strong magic wave came from the huge red fireball that was gradually gathering in his hands. It's an evil wizard. The Blood Knight gritted his teeth and roared at the sky, but unfortunately he did not have the ability to fly and fight. He could only watch the spellcaster above his head complete the condensation of the instantaneous spell at a very fast speed. He raised a red fireball that was bigger than the silver moon with both hands, and then bombarded it directly towards the gate of the monastery, where the largest number of refugees gathered. The Blood Knight subconsciously activated his own innate ability, but found desperately that his blood power seemed to have suddenly lost its vitality and no longer responded to his call. Just as the huge fireball was about to hit him, a curse full of anger and disgust rang in his ears at the last moment of his life. Fuck your witch hunter. Chapter 102. Vaughn held the prismatic bayonet in the suit on the magic gun and stabbed it hard at the evil orc who was lying on the ground with one leg broken and rolling and wailing. The warm and smelly blood splattered his legs, and Vaughn stamped his feet without caring. After this battle, there is no longer a large-scale evil orc tribe in the River Valley area. Duff said regretfully while cleaning up the recyclable spoils on the corpses of evil orcs. It's just winter, I said. To be honest, I miss them a little when they were desperate for their lives and were competing with us for control of the Iceland River. Vaughn snorted and didn't want to answer. Since the outpost army was equipped with the newly developed sniper magic gun by the Lord, Chief Pierce specially selected a group of soldiers with excellent shooting and aiming skills and formed a sniper team to deal with the casters and the evil orcs. Vaughn was eager to try it out and thought that he was definitely qualified to join. Who knew that Chief Pierce ignored him directly and chose Duff, who looked stupid? There were only 2 orcs in the veteran team, he and Duff, which made Vaughn seem unpopular. I secretly found out that after the battle, except for the soldiers who stayed at the outpost of the valley, the Lord only planned to retain some of the elite soldiers, and everyone else had to disband on the spot. A veteran deputy quietly came to Vaughn. Beside him, he asked tentatively. Yes, it is said that there is a shortage of people on the city wall construction site. We won't let us deal with those bricks and stones, right? Duff also shouted, "The salary gap is too big. There are fish and meat every day in the army. There is still 120 yuan of military pay, and other jobs in the territory, how can there be such a high salary?" Vaughn pressed Duff's waist with a gun, "Shut up. What Chief Pierce didn't announce, don't talk nonsense." The messenger not far away held the magic stone with the sound and blew the whistle of gathering. "Stop the team! Stop the team!" Everyone gathers and returned to the outpost fortress. Early the next morning, the entire army gathered and shouted through the entire outpost fortress. Commander Pierce stood on the wooden stand in the assembly square and shouted to the 300 soldiers neatly lined up below, "After 3 months of training, 3 months of actual combat, and 3 months of rotation, you have completed it. The transformation from a civilian to an experienced soldier." He glanced down with his sharp eyes, "Protect Lord Harvey's pioneering territory and keep the territory from harm and plunder by evil orcs and greedy nobles. Your achievements have been unanimously recognized by Lord and the people." When many soldiers heard these words, they secretly raised their heads and raised their chests. "But, next, your militia team will be officially reorganized into Lord Harvey's regular army. Those who are accidentally injured and disabled during the battle and are unwilling to continue fighting. After the team is disbanded, you can go to the military control office to register." Lord Harvey said that in addition to the full payment of all military salaries, an additional subsidy of 300 yuan will be given, the discharge fee. There were some slight body shaking in the team, but no one whispered, which was discipline and rules. "Request a report." Someone shouted with his hands raised. "Explain. The regular army means that Lord wants to enthrone us as knights? Will we have the land and real estate for reward?" Duff couldn't help laughing. Vaughn turned around and glared at him fiercely, scaring him so much that he quickly pursed his lips. "What are you dreaming about spring and autumn?" Pierce rolled his eyes. "Lord Harvey himself is not aristocrat. Isn't you enough to get frustrated with the nobles? Why? Just as he had some skills, he was about to turn over and oppress and enslave him. Someone else?" The veteran asked the question, lowered his head with a red face. "It is true that the refugees always hated the nobles, but who dares to say that they have never dreamed of being a noble master to be a mighty man and enjoy it?" Pierce said with a stern face, "Never forget that you are soldiers of civilian origin. The purpose of your battle for them is to protect our own territory and people. Of course, the premise of all this is under the leadership of Lord Harvey. It was carried out next. The regular army is a professional soldier who fights only to protect the Lord's territory, and all property and people in the territory. When others work in the factory, you are training and fighting. When others farm on the farm, you are training and fighting. When others sell goods in the market, you are still training and fighting." Another veteran raised his hand tremblingly and asked, "That's no different from now?" Pierce took out a document that Lord Harvey had prepared for him from his arms, coughed lightly, and began to recite it loudly. "The regular army needs to undergo stricter training and assessment, stricter management system, and richer salary." The last sentence made the soldiers below lit up their eyes. "The regular army will implement a promotion system. Anyone who completes combat tasks in combat, performs excellent results and strictly obeys instructions will have the opportunity to be promoted to an officer." Pierce pointed to himself, "Just like me, lead an army." The soldiers finally couldn't help but start to whisper, and everyone looked excited and furious. Pierce shook the documents in his hand and continued to start to induce things in a row. Officers can get higher salary and industries that they exchange for military achievements, such as real estate and shops. Standing quietly in front of the team and listening, Vaughn couldn't help but frowned. He wondered if he had misheard. Although there was no land reward, weren't real estate and shops also industries? What's the difference between this and canonizing a knight? A cheer broke out in the crowd of soldiers. Pierce raised his hand to quiet them down and read out the last paragraph of the document with a serious expression. "No mistakes, 1 sentence, 1 post, 1 content, 1 6, 1 book, 1 bar. But you must remember that once you become Lord Harvey's regular army, the system you abide by will be much stricter than the current one. Mission failure, escape from the battlefield, shameless rebellion, and violation of discipline will be severely punished. This is not a matter of being whipped by me. The punishment ranges from imprisonment to death penalty, and all the property and rewards you have obtained before will be confiscated. Think about it carefully. If you voluntarily withdraw, it's still time to regret it now." The soldiers were silent, but no one chose to raise their hands to withdraw. "Very good, from now on, you are the regular soldiers of Lord Harvey. But don't forget, there are nearly 2,500 soldiers like you in the territory, waiting for you to compete. This army restructuring announcement from Lord Harvey is for the 3,000 combat militias in the entire Pioneer territory. Next, the soldiers whose names I read, please step out. You will be the first batch of trainee officers and non-commissioned officers in this regular army. Vaughn, the former captain of the sharpshooter team, step out. Duff, the former captain of the sniper team, step out. Tommy, the former captain of the Jackdaw Ridge Sentry, step out. Wayne, the former captain of the sniper team, step out. Chapter 103. After completing the reform plan of the Pioneer Territory's private militia to the regular army system, Harvey has been intensively involved in the territory's development plan. Since the last accidental assassination in the laboratory, Reiner has completely been unable to accept the way of relying solely on alchemy beasts to ensure Harvey's personal safety. At present, whether Harvey goes out daily or just moves around in the castle, there are always 2 humanoid alchemy beasts by his side. These are giant ape beasts that Reiner has trained alone and are specially used for 24-hour personal protection. In addition, the castle and the laboratory are equipped with 50 refugee soldiers who are carefully selected from the regular army, with clean identities and are the first batch to join the territory, as Harvey's second-level security defense force. Even the previously ignored locations such as the sewer ventilation pipes that lead to the castle have been arranged with special soldiers to patrol in turns. Harvey sat in a warm study room with a fireplace and hot water pipes connected to the wall. While sorting out and writing work plans, he chatted with Tommy, the new captain of the Lord's Guard, a young officer nicknamed Smart Guy. Does the northern wasteland often encounter such heavy snow in previous years? Tommy nodded and answered honestly and sincerely, Sir, the northern wasteland is basically like this every winter. The heavy snow can turn the entire wasteland into a pure white hell. Both humans and animals are frozen to death and starved to death in large numbers. Harvey sighed when he heard this. It is no wonder that the evil orcs go south to plunder every winter. Even their race living in the upper food chain of the wasteland has such a hard time, not to mention the refugees. In the more than 1 month since the winter in the territory, various work and production accidents have often occurred due to the cold and snowstorms. The simply compacted and hardened road surface has become extremely muddy due to the accumulation of snow. Even the alchemical camel beasts are stuck in the middle of the road from time to time and need rescue. The underground drainage in the residential area was completely frozen overnight, and several times it backflowed into the houses, causing all kinds of chaos. Fortunately, the HVAC project that I planned to implement in advance before winter was not delayed. Now every household has a thermal boiler driven by a large alchemy beast, which directly heats the house through metal water pipes. Otherwise, relying on the simple fireplace in the house, many people may get frostbite or get sick this winter. After the winter is over and the snow has melted, we have to consider paving the roads in the territory with cement and gravel to avoid repeating the mistakes of this winter. However, the most important thing to be solved now is to truly refine and implement the previous reform plan of the regular army, and issue a series of detailed organization, rules and regulations, and reward and punishment promotion standards. Harvey had been exposed to many military-related war games when he was a child, but he had not really been exposed to this knowledge in reality. He could only rely entirely on the cognition and understanding of a modern person to make up a brand new army reform plan. The Pioneer Territory currently has a total of 3,000 soldiers who have been trained and have combat experience. Therefore, Harvey did not want to set the military regulations too high. He temporarily divided them into 2 independent organizations, named the Guard Army and the Northern Army, one responsible for the defense of the territory, and the other responsible for external offensive operations. The team is composed of battalions, teams, and groups. 10 people form a group, 10 groups form a team, and 10 teams form a battalion, totaling 1,000 people. In this world, except for spellcasters, the overall combat level of ordinary people of all races, from his perspective as an Earth traveler who knows the history of world wars, is basically the scale of a village fight. Even the battle between spellcasters is at most a magical version of a village fight. The Federation and the Wizard Kingdom coalition in the Evil Moon Mountains, formed by the Mage War Corps, has only 500 mid-level spellcasters, which is already the top spellcaster combat cluster in the southern continent. In a sense, these civilian soldiers under his command, who have undergone actual combat training and are extremely experienced in the use of magic guns, can actually match the Mage Regiment, except that the way of releasing magic attacks is slightly different. The energy beam bullets of the magic gun are not much less damaging than the instant fireball spell of the mid-level spellcaster. It's just that one is a single target penetration attack, and the other is a single target range attack. As for the rules and regulations and laws and disciplines of the army, they are very simple. It goes without saying that they must be absolutely loyal to the Lord, and they must obey the orders of their superiors at all times, not escape in battle, not betray, etc. But Harvey especially emphasized one of them: private looting and random disturbances are absolutely prohibited. Any noble knight group, or the conscripted army composed of civilians and mercenaries, has a common problem in this era, that is, in order to boost morale during combat, they are often keen to indulge their men in looting and disturbing the people. Although Harvey's main enemy target is still the alien evil orcs, this rule must draw a clear red line first to avoid irreparable bad situations in the future. There will always be a time when the army needs to cross the God's Spine Mountains and step into the Southern Kingdom and the noble fiefdom, especially when he has completely offended the grizzly bear leader Earl Fagin. But the primitive greed in human nature cannot be completely eliminated and changed by a piece of regulation alone. Discipline and punishment alone are not enough. There must also be corresponding reward means and honor systems to give these soldiers who strictly abide by the rules and regulations and self-discipline full comfort both materially and spiritually. The means of reward must be real money and fixed industries, and they must fall into the hands of people who are willing to abide by the rules of the game. These people will firmly attach themselves to themselves for their own interests and assets, and firmly take root in the pioneering territory. Anyone who wants to harm and overthrow Harvey will be fiercely resisted by this interest group. Honor blessing is a positive moral kidnapping. It can be the cheers and support of the people of the territory, or various false names and titles within the army. In short, as long as it can satisfy the vanity of the soldiers, it is enough to motivate them to become moral role models. No mistakes in one song, one post, one content, 1/6, 1/9, one book, one bar. The content of the reward is fixed on construction industries such as real estate and shops, mainly because Harvey believes that the current farmland still needs to be cultivated with alchemy beasts to maximize the output. If they are dispersed and rewarded to individual families, it is easy to reduce the efficiency of cultivation, which will not be worth the loss. Moreover, he did not want to cultivate a group of military nobles who came from the army and owned a large amount of private land, so that these people would gradually leave the ranks of the people and become a new group of aristocrats, forming an opposition with the ordinary people in the territory. So it is most appropriate to reward them with houses and shops, which is equivalent to giving him or his family an additional fixed asset in addition to the military pay, so that the soldiers themselves can also have a generous pension after retiring. This is a social form that directly skips the feudal system and moves towards the embryonic form of capitalism. Harvey put down the feather pen that wrote the article and couldn't help muttering to himself. In the future, there will be no traditional feudal nobles in his territory, but a large number of people with fixed industries rentiers. The landlords and landlady that he hated the most in his previous life were actually pushed onto the stage of history by himself in this life. Chapter 104. On the southeast side of the Pioneer City wall, a funeral was being held on a piece of lawn that had been cleared and cut down separately. This place is very close to the farm on the east side of the territory. Standing on this slightly higher gentle slope, you can see a flat farmland not far away. Several huge agricultural alchemy beasts are driving in the black fertile fields with the assistance of farm workers. The lawn area is not large, similar to the civic square in front of the Lord's castle. The only difference is that there is a circle of low walls built with cobblestones around it, but it can only stop the herds grazing on the hillside. Ordinary people only need to support themselves with one hand to climb over. Vaughn stood side by side with two newly promoted military colleagues, wearing the brand new black winter uniforms that had just been issued not long ago, and a white frost flower was pinned on his chest. This flower is a unique flower plant in the northern wilderness and only blooms in winter. He had never heard of a funeral ceremony. His impression was that only when the tribal nobles or high priests of the evil orcs died, they would set up a bonfire to burn their bodies, and then take away the charred skulls as sacrifices for future sacrificial ceremonies. Ordinary half-orcs or human refugees would not hold funerals. They were always like weeds in the wind of the wilderness, living in fear and dying quietly. Those who were lucky would be secretly carried by their relatives to a secluded place to dig a pit and bury them, but they would definitely be dug out and eaten by wild beasts at night. Those who were unlucky would be dragged back to their tents by the hungry evil orcs as an extra winter snack before their bodies were even cooled. But today, he was notified to represent all the soldiers in the army, together with two other battalion commanders of the same level, to attend the funerals of more than a dozen ordinary soldiers who died in battle. Vaughn actually knew the details of these soldiers very well. Some were veterans who were recruited at the same time as him. When fighting against the evil orcs, they were unfortunately knocked down by a close attack and had their heads chopped off by an axe because they did not have time to change their ammunition. Some followed their companions and sneaked out of the outpost fortress in the middle of the night, trying to snatch the remains of their comrades from the giant beast corpse puppets, but ended up leaving themselves there. Some had just joined the army and received only 1 month of training before they were rotated to the River Valley outpost. As a result, the first time they met the enemy, they were so unlucky that they were stabbed by a bone spear and died before they were sent to the medical station. Most of them were like him, single men who struggled to survive in the wilderness. Not to mention starting a family and raising offspring, they had almost never touched a woman's hand. There were also a few who had families with their wives and several well-raised children. The youngest was born after arriving in the territory and could not even walk. If it were the past, his wife and children would have been miserable. The woman could find another man who was similar to him to live with, but the children would be a burden that wasted food. They were usually taken to the wild at night and thrown away, which was a bargain for the wild beasts that hid during the day and came out at night. But Lord Harvey seemed to pay special attention to the orphans and widows left by the dead soldiers. He not only fulfilled his promise when he established the regular army to give the families a generous pension. He also provided their offspring with free admission to public schools, and gave them a certain quota of food and charcoal every month. This means that the families of the dead soldiers can support the children left behind even if they don't work, until they leave school and become adults. They can read and write, and work in factories that they don't understand, with a high salary similar to that of officers. No wonder even a fool like Duff couldn't help but shout out his envy. This kind of treatment, even I feel a little envious, damn it. Vaughn shook his head violently, trying desperately to drive away such stupid thoughts from his mind. He didn't want to die on the battlefield, and then his wife became someone else's wife. Wait. Vaughn suddenly remembered that he didn't have a wife at all. He had never even touched a woman's hand. Mr. Astalin was in charge of the soldier's funeral, but the ceremony speech was a little too much, and Vaughn only heard a few words that he could understand. We will always remember those who sacrificed to protect their homes and loved ones. And the souls of the soldiers who fought bravely will return to the territory. These words made Vaughn feel a warm current surging in his heart, and his eyes and nose were a little sour. Those who were alive and swaying in front of him not long ago were now put into small pottery jars. The bodies of the fallen soldiers were not convenient to transport back to the territory, and they were all collected by them personally and burned into ashes and brought back. The last part of the funeral was the burial. The pottery jars were neatly stacked in the earth pit dug in advance. Mr. Astalin asked all the officers to line up in order according to their ranks and positions, and shovel a handful of soil to fill the pit. The first one to come was Vaughn, who was at the head of the team. He was now the most experienced battalion commander among the 3 battalion-level officers, so he naturally lined up at the front of the team. He held the shovel and inserted it into the pile of soil in front of him. He felt a little heavy in his hand. The dozens of officers behind him watched him silently without saying a word, which made him slow down his movements. After filling a handful of soil, he couldn't help but pick the white frost flower from his chest and gently placed it on the stone tombstone erected in front of the earth pit. He only recognized a few words on the tombstone, which were probably their names. Vaughn knew that many soldiers born to refugees did not have complete names, and they usually called them with easy-to-remember nicknames, but when the Lord counted the list of the dead, he waved his hand to them. A new first and last name was temporarily selected. If this is done, even in a few decades, people will not confuse their identities when they come here to pay their respects. That's great, Vaughn thinks. If his final destination is here, he would be lucky enough to obtain the surname given by Lord Harvey himself. He has never had a surname, and neither of his father and ancestors seem to have. There is no mistake. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 619, 1 book, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, a book. It would be great if I could use Floyd as my surname after my death. No, no, my identity is too low to defile Lord Harvey's surname. After the funeral, Astarin hurried back to the Lord's castle to report to Harvey. Sir, the soldier's funeral has been held. He seemed to be in a complicated mood. When I presided over the ceremony on the spot, I observed some interesting behaviors and attitudes of the officers. Harvey put down his quill and raised his head and asked curiously, "Oh? Shouldn't the funeral be solemn and solemn? Why do you think their behavior is interesting?" "No," Asterin shook his head, unable to accurately describe his feelings, "I can't say what this is like. I have never seen any noble or superior wizard in the past to treat lowly civilians like this." Harvey laughed, "That's normal, because I'm neither aristocrat nor an ancient superior wizard." He pressed Asterin on the sofa and explained with a smile, "But do you think their reaction and attitude are good, right?" Without waiting for Asterin to answer, he continued to say to himself, "This is what I told you, another disguised form of buying people's hearts. This is different from rewarding them with money, but the purpose is to achieve the same destination. Harvey's ultimate goal is to make these civilian soldiers begin to think and understand why they are fighting. When they understand that fighting bravely and defending their homes can also receive the same noble honor as the noble knights, they will be praised and remembered forever. This army, which is entirely formed by civilians, will produce unimaginable changes in thought." Chapter 105. I went to have my wisdom teeth removed last Thursday, and the next day I ate hamburgers and fried chicken. Then I started to have a low-grade fever and inflammation, my face was swollen like a pig's head, and one I couldn't open. I had a severe headache, so I posted 3 updates every day from Thursday to Sunday, all of which were from my saved drafts. Now I have no more saved drafts. I can't hold on any longer, and I plan to take a leave on Monday to go to the hospital for intravenous anti-inflammatory treatment. I will resume updating on Tuesday, and then write a little more every day to slowly accumulate my saved drafts. I advise friends not to ignore oral problems, especially wisdom teeth and tooth decay. The whole treatment process is really painful. P.S. The dental nerve inside my wisdom tooth decay was also necrotic, so the dental nerve had to be extracted. It was so painful that I was twitching, and the doctor couldn't hold it back. Chapter 106. When Uriel walked out of the Territory Medical Hospital with a small bag containing his own laundry, he found that more than a dozen leaders were cleaning the snow on the streets that were originally covered in snow. The cold sunlight reflected on the snow pile, which was a little white, making him unable to help but squint his eyes slightly. Because of the assassination in the laboratory, he was unfortunately pierced by the murderer with a dagger. He originally thought that he would not have good luck this time and could hold on with a strong body like he had broken his hands before. Who knew that he was carried to the hospital and recovered his health in less than half a month after Lord Egno's careful treatment? It was the process of treating the injury that made him feel a little terrifying. His wound was sutured, and it turned out to be operated by a terrifying metal monster with 4 mechanical arms and red eyes. Every day, people wearing pure white blouses and covering their mouths and noses with cotton cloth of the same color will take a glass tube with a steel needle at the front and inject a strange light green liquid from the glass tube into his body. Just as Uriel was standing at the entrance of the medical hospital in a daze, a city official in a dark blue uniform led several soldiers into the sky and asked him, "You are Uriel, are you? How is your injury recovering? Lord wants to summon you." Lord? Is the Lord going to hold him guilty of leading the assassin into the laboratory? Although Uriel was a little confused, he subconsciously followed the city officials to the castle. 2 soldiers stationed in the hall stepped forward and carefully searched him, not letting go of his crotch and solace. Then he was led upstairs into a luxurious room with a thick velvet blanket that was as warm as spring. "This is the Lord's study. Let's wait first. The Lord has just woken up and is still having breakfast." A human-shaped metal monster stood in 4 corners of the small room, and his crimson eyes stared at Uriel standing in the room for a moment, making him feel as nervous as a thorn on his back. Fortunately, the cramping situation did not last long. When Lord Harvey walked into the room, all the soldiers and alchemy beasts bent down at the same time. Uriel also quickly recalled the etiquette he learned when he was trained by knights, and knelt on one knee to salute the Lord. "I have figured out your matter." A gentle voice came from the top of my head. It was Harvey, who had just sat behind the desk. When he was forced, he could still speak bravely and warn me. "It is enough to show your loyalty." The word loyalty was passed into Uriel's ears, making him feel his eyes sore and his throat tightened. "Lord. I just follow the character that the knight should have." Harvey chuckled and teased, "But I remember, you don't seem to be a formally conferred knight." Uriel's face flushed in an instant and hesitated. I haven't collected enough yet. I am not a nobleman or a descendant of a knight, so..." Harvey interrupted his somewhat ashamed explanation and comforted him, "The knight title is just a false reputation. True bravery is the courage to face sin, fight against injustice, and protect the weak. I believe you have all these qualities. Wolver, who was just escorted to Citizen Square 3 days ago and was hanged in public, explained clearly when he was on trial that their original plan was divided into 2 steps. On the one hand, it was to coerce Uriel, who was familiar with the ventilation sewer. Lead the way and sneak into the laboratory to place evidence of frame up. On the one hand, he is to seize the opportunity to assassinate himself. This conspiracy from Grizzly Castle caused the innocent death of a night patrol soldier. If it weren't for the Territory Medical Hospital, the medical alchemy beast and Egno, the healing master, Uriel would have been seriously injured and killed. After Uriel's mood stabilized slightly, Harvey continued, I am not a noble myself, so I cannot confer you as a formal knight because of your achievements. He paused and continued, but you must have heard of it. Wolver, the murderer who stabbed you, had been sentenced 3 days ago, and his body is still hanging on the gallows in the square to be displayed. Uriel lowered his body and replied sincerely, Sir, I am very grateful to you for your life and dare not ask for any enthronement or reward. Harvey waved his hand and signaled the guards beside him to pull him up from the ground. The rewards that should be obtained cannot be erased. Since you have received regular knight training in the past, I have some questions to test you. Uriel raised his head and looked puzzled, thinking that Lord is going to take the exam for my fighting skills or knight etiquette. How do you think of these traditional nobles today? Don't be perfunctory or afraid to answer, just tell the truth. The trainee knight was stunned for a moment, lowered his head and thought for a while, and then replied carefully, the nobles came from a family, and the status brought by their bloodlines is very different from that of civilians like us, but they never really seemed to value their identity. Most of the glory and reputation that come are addicted to money and pleasure, and regard the suffering of the people as nothing. He paused, as if he had been holding his breath for a long time, and finally vented unscrupulously, most of the fief knights have never followed the real knight's way. They fought for power and profit, indulged their subordinates to oppress civilians, grab personal gain in the battles between the nobles and plunder the people in the war. This kind of knight identity and title is a betrayal and shame to me, and I don't like it. Harvey clapped his hands with admiration, thinking that this young man had a high spiritual awareness. He got up and walked to Uriel, pretended to raise his hand to tidy up the collar of the worn cotton coat for him, and inadvertently lowered his head to glance at his empty sleeve. There is no mistake. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 619, 1 book, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, a book. Uriel also noticed the Lord's scrutiny gaze, and with some inferiority, he quickly put his broken arm behind him and subconsciously covered it up. You have a good rest. I heard that your lungs have been pierced. Even if you come out of the hospital, be careful not to get frozen. Harvey's concerned tone made Uriel's eyes red with excitement, but the next thing his words instantly made him widen his eyes in disbelief. After the winter celebration is over, I will formally recruit you to join the Territory Defense Forces to serve as the political supervisor of the Defense Forces. How about it? Are you willing to accept it? Sir, I am already a disabled person, and can I join your army? And political guidance, what military position is it? I have never heard of it before. Harvey couldn't help laughing and patted Uriel on the shoulder hard. It's about letting you join my army and teaching my soldiers what is the real way of knight. He grabbed Uriel's arm with disabilities without any slight joke or discrimination, and solemnly promised, don't worry, the treatment technology of the Territory Medical Hospital is developing rapidly. One day, there will be a way to solve the problem of your broken hand and disabled. After all, many soldiers were injured and disabled in battle. Uriel's eyes lit up a lot when he heard this, and he asked with expectation, Sir, is it really? Can I really restore my broken hand? Then do I have a chance to use your power magical weapons, fighting bravely for you and the people of the territory? Of course, the position of political guidance needs to lead and inspire the fighting spirit of the soldiers and charge forward at all times. Harvey explained with a smile. Of course, my military political commissar must take the lead in charge. Chapter 107. The winter celebration of the pioneered winter was officially scheduled to be held on the evening of winter. It indicates that the harsh cold winter is over and the new spring is about to usher in. The municipal department began to arrange to clean the snow on the street 3 days in advance. At the doors of various factories, shops, and government departments, colorful cloth flags were hung to make the territory that was originally all gray cement buildings become colorful. Stand up! The notice was posted early in the Citizens Square, announcing that on the day of the celebration, in addition to the traditional reserved Project the Sharpshooter target shooting competition, there is also a grand garden party, which anyone can participate for free, and win various colors through games and competitive events. Prizes and food. Early in the morning, Dad Cullum got up and started to clean himself up, and kept urging Uriel to wash and have dinner, and then accompanied him to attend the winter celebration. He went too late, but he couldn't get a good seat in the front row to watch the shooting competition. Dad, your legs and feet are not cured yet, so don't join in the crowded places. News that Uriel was about to join the Territory Defense Force after the winter dusk spread quickly in the army. Several senior defense officers had already visited him in advance and secretly showed his goodwill to him. It was also through this relationship that he asked someone to get some magic potions from the medical hospital to find ways to treat Dad Cullum's increasingly serious footsore problem. Fortunately, the agent prepared by Lord Egno had miraculous effects. In just 2 days, several ulcerated sores on Dad Cullum's feet had healed and scabs. Looking at Dad Corin, who was still limping while walking, he insisted on attending the winter celebration. Uriel could only smile bitterly and go out with him, joining the bustling crowd and walking towards the Citizens Square. The wide square in front of the Lord's castle has been demolished in advance, such as the gallows, and only wooden stands that facilitate the participation of senior officials in the territorial event by Harvey and other territorial officials are retained. 2 rows of defense soldiers inside and outside were standing around the stands in advance. They were wearing brand new and thick black uniforms, carrying silver magic spears, and straightening their backs like javelins, marching where the Lord Harvey was. The stands firmly surrounded. Several open temporary sheds were built on the open space in the square. Outside the most lively shed, there were already inside and outside the consorts who came to attend the celebration, where there were places to distribute prizes and food for garden activities. Don't squeeze, don't squeeze. Only unadulterated children are qualified to receive a fried chicken leg. Others have to participate in the garden and get rewards to exchange for food. The staff responsible for the distribution of food were also anxious in the middle of winter. He was sweating profusely and cooperated with the soldiers who maintained order, and repeatedly repeated the rules of the celebration to the surrounding leaders. The staff next door responsible for giving away the prizes was also sweating profusely, waving their hands at the top of their lungs: add to the park, go to the ring, throw stones, guess riddles, spelling. Get the prize voucher, and then return to me to redeem the prize. While he said, he raised all kinds of prizes in his hand to display them. Look at it. These are gloves sewn in reindeer skin, real high-end goods. 20 prize tickets can be redeemed for free, without spending a penny, as long as participate in the game. And this, the double-layer rabbit-haired winter hat, you don't have to worry about your ears being frozen when you go out at night, just 18 prize tickets. Honey wine, which the farm just brewed this fall, has a mellow and long taste. I reward myself with a cup after working hard. It is amazing with smoked venison. You can redeem a bottle with just 10 prize tickets. Every time the staff introduced a prize, the crowd of onlookers burst into cheers. More people immediately turned around and walked towards the garden game in the greenhouse, ready to line up to participate in the game, and won these greedy prizes. A huge bonfire pit made of stones was set up in the center of the square. Several strong soldiers carried more than a dozen marinated cattle and sheep with spices, and put them together on the fire and kept grilling them. The chefs in the food processing factory carried all kinds of seasonings, covered in oil under the roasting of charcoal fires, constantly applying spices to the cattle and sheep, and could smell the aroma of barbecue from afar. Harvey sat in the stands in the square wearing a thick bear fur coat. A heated fire bucket was specially placed at the bottom of the fur backrest chair under his butt to ensure that the weak lord would not catch a cold directly in the midwinter weather. He smiled and looked at the crowded crowd in the square, enthusiastically surrounding the game huts of garden parties, and played various interesting games invented by him amid the loud noise and laughter. It seems that participating in the game can be exchanged for free food and prizes, which is still very attractive. On the day of the celebration, except for the Defense Army responsible for the security and the on-duty staff of the medical hospital, everyone else has a full-day vacation, and the celebration garden activities are held. At least 2/3 of the leaders in the territory attracted to participate, surrounding the square. The reason why Harvey has been thinking about and planning for this celebration is actually a question that he has been thinking about and planning how to enhance people's sense of identity and loyalty to their place of residence. These wasteland refugees who were originally displaced and in danger would not understand what identification and loyalty are in a short period of time. A year ago, they didn't even recognize a big word on the bulletin board. They only care about whether they can eat enough every day and whether they will be able to night frozen to death. The more ignorant, the more backward you are, the more short-sighted you are. This is an inevitable law of social development. But now it is completely different. These people who have stable work, residence, and saving property have already initially possessed a certain concept of homeland and understood that their interests are firmly tied to the interests of the lords of the territory, and they will prosper and lose all losses. Harvey also gradually strengthens this concept of homeland with the salary paid on time and in full, the continuous improvement of territory construction, and popularization of literacy education. As long as such practice continues to be stable for 3 to 5 years, it will become all the consensus and traditions in people's hearts. The people living in the territory will eventually realize that under the leadership of Lord Harvey, they live 100 times happier than the lowly civilians in other places. No comparison, no harm. The park tour was in full swing until noon, and we participated in various interesting games, so that the enthusiasm of the people who won food and prizes was not diminished at all. Everyone sat around the fire in groups of 3 or 3, holding their own dry food or redeeming rewarded food, chatting loudly and laughing to eat each other. The Northern Army where Duff and Vaughn are located is not responsible for the security of the winter celebrations. In addition, they have just returned from the rotation of the River Valley outpost, and can enjoy a day of free vacation according to the military regulations. Humph! Those guys from the municipal department have recognized me and are not allowed to participate in the stone treating game, saying it is unfair to others. Duff and Vaughn did not wear officer uniforms today, but were still responsible for the Sharp-Eyed Garden Tour event. The person found out and directly declined them. Vaughn took 2 wheat cakes with fatty meat sauce and ate them all over his mouth. It's a pity that only winter celebrations can eat such a good thing. If the army could eat this thing every day, carry me. I don't even bother to come to participate in the event. He pointed at the leaders around the scattered feral stalls with his oil stains. He watched them throw out one deviant ring after another with clumsy movements, and couldn't help laughing. We are from gods, we are from gods. The soldiers of the gun team went to play with these stupid guys who were amateurs, and whether they would give them a way out, and we would not be able to get the prizes. Wayne squeezed up from behind and urged in a low voice, "Go back to the camp and change into military uniforms. The afternoon target competition is the most important thing." "What? Do you want to lose to the soft boys who have never seen blood in the Defense Army?" After Vaughn was promoted to battalion commander of the North Army, Duff and Wayne were also promoted to captains, and each led a team of soldiers composed of 100 people. The small group opposition between veterans and new recruits still exists, but now it has transformed into a vague comparison and confrontation between the Northern Army responsible for combat abroad and the defense forces responsible for the guards of the territory. There is no mistake. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 619, 1 book, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, a book. In the first target competition, Vaughn took the lead. The Lord personally awarded an exquisite medal, which was worn on his left chest and repeatedly showing off, which really made several new battalion commanders of the Defense Army jealous. Everyone comes from the same background. You, Vaughn, just joined the army earlier, so why should you suppress others? The target shooting competition at the celebration was the emerging recruits and the Defense Army, giving this group of veterans from the Northern Army a chance to attack. They are all elite shooters fed by magic bullets one by one. Who can be worse than who? As a result, when the target competition was in the afternoon, several people immediately received a rule strike announced by the Lord. Whether the Northern Army or the Defense Army, any officer with a captain or above position is not allowed to participate in this target shooting competition. This is to give new soldiers a chance to show their abilities. I'm done, don't let the veterans come on the field. The new croakers below may not be able to beat the veterans of the Defense Army. Duff frowned and complained in a low voice. These veterans were naturally ordered by the Lord like an oracle, but they could be. Their personal performance in front of Harvey was commended, which was their more important goal. What should I do? I don't seem to find anyone who can compare to ours. Wayne also frowned and thought. Vaughn looked around the group leaders around him and everyone else thought it was surprisingly good. These team leaders also shrank their shoulders and lowered their heads nervously like chickens, not daring to force themselves to make a promise to win under the hideous gaze of the bosses of the top of their heads. Tommy, who is also the captain of the team, squeezed in with a smile and whispered, "I found out who the Defense Army is going to send to participate in the competition, and whether I want someone to find someone to lead those outstanding guys to the public toilet, then, he raised his hand and gestured to push the person into the feces bucket. The Northern Army will not do such shameless and despicable acts. Vaughn knew that Tommy was thinking of a wrong idea again, so he immediately criticized him seriously. If you lose, you can hold your tail and be a man for a few days, and then you have it. The new combat mission will naturally be able to step on them again. Tommy was not angry after being criticized, and still smiled and pulled a shorter soldier who was younger than him. His name is Zhu Gao, he is a soldier in my team. His shooting accuracy is better than mine. He used to rely on one-handed archery skills to hunt, and he never hungry on the wasteland. Wayne's eyes lit up and he grabbed the soldier who seemed to have just grown up, which scared the other party so much that he almost retracted his head directly into the collar of his wide military uniform. Damn, I've heard of you, Bamboo Pole, right? You're the main force in the game. He pulled over the stunt Duff and pointed at the shiny new officer's leather boots on his feet. See? Captain Duff's military boots are custom-made for non-commissioned officers. He has an identical pair at home. If you perform well, he will reward you privately. Duff nodded, then scratched the back of his head before slowly reacting, damn, why did you use my stuff as a reward? Don't you have any of your own? You bastard! Chapter 108. Not long after returning to Days, Fur Holden saw the member code of Eye of Illusion on the Magic Network forum. Hee. I knew this guy wasn't here to help me for nothing. Mithril Unicorn gave him the anti-forbidden magic array instrument to take to Barkley instead of giving it to Fur, who was also a member of the forum, which was enough to show that he had long been one of the candidates for new members. Fur didn't think there was any problem. Mr. Turing approved his application for membership, which itself meant that he recognized his performance in this revenge operation. However, he logged into the forum today not to build a relationship with the new member Eye of Illusion and reminisce about the past. It was because a new functional section appeared on the forum anonymous consignment. Holden didn't understand it. The forum itself was an anonymous form of communication. As long as members didn't meet privately in reality, there was no need to add this additional anonymous transaction section. But when he really entered the new forum interface that had just been opened, he found that his idea was wrong. Elements. They dare to put these things up for sale. Isn't this a research direction that the Federation has banned? Can such research results be traded? Fell, with a messy crimson curly hair, kept flipping through the anonymous consignment section with a look of surprise, and the various transaction information that was refreshed quickly, even his mouth was a little bit unable to close. Life refining, curse spells, sacrifice spells, demon summoning spells. Dark magic stones, ghost puppets, deformed magic beasts. He even saw someone consigning live demon captives. I didn't expect that this group of high-level spellcasters in the forum who usually look decent would play so much in private. Fell couldn't help but think of the time when he first joined the forum, in order to trade a death magic weapon made from the head of a demon sacrifice with a man in the mirror. He made a mysterious and sneaky appearance. He found that as long as he entered the anonymous consignment forum, the code names of all forum members turned into blurred mercury spots, and he could only see the flashing activity, but could not see the code name clearly. Moreover, the more popular the spells and items in the forum, the more they were arranged at the forefront of the transaction category, and the text of the transaction information was also thoughtfully changed to eye-catching red bold font, attracting people to click in to check. The transaction of consigning live demon captives is currently hanging high at the top. Fayer couldn't help but stretch out his finger and point at the crystal screen of the magic brain to enter the detailed transaction content. After all, the demons are also a high-level intelligent race like humans. If they can be used for magic experiments, the feedback effect will definitely be far greater than those low-intelligence inferior demons or rock goblins. If you want to get such a high-quality experimental carrier at ordinary times, you can't easily get it without going to the battlefield where the demons are active in the Evil Moon Mountains. After all, the demons' inherent racial talent blood and flesh explosion, makes it very difficult to capture them alive. The detailed trading interface was completely different from what Fayer had imagined. It was not presented in pure text like in the information exchange section. It actually inserted a video content similar to that presented by the Magic Stone, and it was constantly played on the crystal screen. It was a weak demon who was tied to the metal laboratory table with chains and unable to struggle. It is obvious that a large amount of anesthetics has been injected, or a weakening spell has been applied. The experienced Fayer immediately commented. He suddenly thought of a problem. The previous forum teleportation array has never been able to transport living creatures with too large a volume and weight, but this demon obviously exceeds the carrying requirements of the array. How did the forum solve this teleportation problem? Is the forum's magic network teleportation array upgraded again? He had a vague idea that made him feel a little incredible. If this continues, will the forum members be able to use the magic network teleportation array to achieve instant teleportation without distinction across the entire continent? Doesn't it mean that as long as there is an event that is unanimously agreed upon by the members of the forum and needs to be completed together in reality, the forum can instantly teleport a group of top high-level spellcasters in the spellcasting world to the designated location at any time and anywhere? If this technology that transcends the times is obtained by the Federation and the Wizard Alliance, how can the cruel war with the demons that has been deadlocked for 100 years happen? It is likely that they will advance to their nest deep in the north in a minute. I wonder if the members of the forum with the background of the Federation and the teacher, will notice this problem like me. Fair couldn't help but stroke his messy hair and sighed secretly. Harvey, who had just launched a new forum business, was very interested in the progress of the online anonymous consignment business. This forum section itself was a functional upgrade that was carried out when the information exchange section was built. The main purpose was to facilitate myself and to use it for some prohibited transactions that were not convenient to put on the table later. At the same time, he also wanted to test whether the instantaneous teleportation array's ability to transmit living creatures could be raised to a higher limit after the Magic Network forum added another planetary energy gathering array. Not long ago, he and Reiner conducted experiments using some larger beasts and captured evil orcs, and there were no transmission problems. However, these large creatures generally experienced adverse reactions such as fainting and vomiting after being teleported across planes, which was acceptable. I didn't expect that when the anonymous transaction stage really began, these forum members would actually be able to bring out so many contraband items. As a forum administrator, Harvey could naturally clearly know the real transaction information of each forum member. Especially Mr. Mirror Man from the Alchemy Exploration Society, who simply let himself go after entering the anonymous section. No mistakes in one post, one content, 1619, one book, one bar. First, he made a large purchase of several types of contraband research materials involving the experiment of refining flesh and blood, and then he took out several interim results of the experiment of soul decomposition that were obviously not to be made public. Don't you, the Alchemy Exploration Society, usually engage in the research and manufacture of magic weapons? Why do you look like a Frankenstein in private? Harvey's mouth twitched a little from trying to hold back his laughter. A one-way communication symbol flashed on the crystal screen of the magic brain instrument, diverting Harvey's attention. Is it that Mr. Heart Demon? Why did he suddenly come to me? Harvey was a little confused. Since the sudden speech in the exchange meeting that caused an uproar and speculation among the members, this seemingly polite demon seemed to be a little ashamed of himself. He had not appeared in the forum for a long time. I didn't expect that he would suddenly come to me again today. Kel'Thuzad, long time no see, Mr. Mindhunter. Mindhunter, hello, Mr. Locator, forgive me for contacting you again. This heart demon seemed reluctant to call Harvey by his forum code name, and preferred the name Locator that it gave Harvey when it and Harvey first met in the Magic Network. Mindhunter, I observed an interesting anonymous trading activity in the forum, and I don't know how to participate. This message made Harvey's heart move. Demons in different spaces also want to participate in anonymous trading? Would this ancient race that can only invade projections in the real world be interested in the trading items of spellcasters? Mindhunter, although I cannot sense your thoughts in real time due to the space plane, I guess you are wondering why a demon would be interested in mortal items? Harvey rolled his eyes speechlessly. This guy's racial talent can be released across planes. It is true that demons are good at thinking and seeing through human nature. Kel'Thuzad, I am indeed very curious, but if you are not convenient to tell me, I will not mind. The forum follows the principle of equivalent exchange. You need to get points first before you can use the points to buy the required items. The other party's code name flashed slowly, as if he was understanding the series of forum transaction rules described by Harvey, and it took a long time before he sent another reply. Mindhunter, I understand. What I want to consign anonymously is a summoning ceremony for a high-level demon sacrifice. The target of the summoning ceremony is me. Chapter 109. Kel'Thuzad, sorry, I want to confirm again, what you want to consign anonymously is the summoning ritual of high-level demon sacrifice, and the target of the summoning ritual is, yourself? When Harvey typed this line of words on the button of the magic brain instrument, he couldn't believe it. This demon from another space wants to sell the sacrificial ritual that summons himself in the anonymous consignment of the forum? Are all you demons so good at playing like this? While waiting for the other party's reply, Harvey couldn't help but start thinking about what the meaning and purpose of his doing this was. All the members of the Magic Network Forum are powerful high-level spellcasters, which are different from the ordinary people and stupid nobles who are easily tempted and corrupted by the devil as rumored. What's more, there are many arcane spellcasters who are good at summoning among these members. Even if they really try the sacrificial ritual, they are very likely to counter the summoned demons on the spot. This demon in the Magic Network space couldn't even deal with himself, a mid-level spellcaster, let alone deal with other members in the forum. Mind Hunter, don't worry, there is no malice in my deal, and there is no so-called conspiracy. Mind Hunter, just in time, in return for your introduction to the forum, I am willing to share some of the secret knowledge of the demon race with you. Harvey immediately became energetic and sat up straight. Kel'Thuzad, I am very interested in the ancient knowledge of the demon race. This is a very fair deal. More than an hour later, Harvey heard from the demon in the code name Mind Hunter that completely subverted his past knowledge and all the history and knowledge about the ancient race of demons. When he was still studying at the Academy of the Dead, Harvey was very interested in ancient races such as dragons, demons, and giants when he was studying the general knowledge course of the extraordinary races on the continent. The disappearance of dragons and giants on the continent was caused partly by their own internal struggles and partly by the joint resistance of humans, demons, elves, dwarves, and other short-lived species. The only difference is that demons are not native races that originally lived in the northern and southern continents, but extraordinary creatures that invaded from different spatial planes. This invasion is not completely unlimited, but requires people to take the initiative to perform summoning rituals and open the connection channel between the two planes by sacrifice. The various sacrificial summoning rituals circulating on the continent basically target lower-level demons who are unable to communicate and are chaotic and bloodthirsty by nature. This leads to most of the rituals ending with the summoner being unable to control the summoned target, resulting in a horrific tragedy. This is also the main reason why all academic spellcasters have been repeatedly warned and reminded not to try summoning and sacrificial magic easily. But the inner demon told Harvey that the essence of all summoned demons is not to play with human nature, seduce mortals to fall, or enjoy bloody sacrifices. What they really need to obtain from the summoner is the strong desire that the summoner actively generates when the sacrificial summoning ceremony is held, something called willpower. Demons are actually a supernatural race that feeds on willpower. This is why most of them will stimulate the summoner's deep desire for certain things in the way of seduction and promise, whether it is wealth, power, strength, beauty. Harvey feels that the answer to this question is very credible. Taking the inner demon of this body in the Magic Network plane as an example, it can be basically confirmed that demons do not really need to feed on those evil flesh and blood sacrifices. Because there are no living entities in the Magic Network space, all wanderers exist in it in the form of spiritual power. As for why he took the initiative to trade the sacrificial summoning ceremony involving himself, the answer is actually simpler. Due to the dual suppression of the Church and the Federation in the real world, few people would risk trying to summon powerful upper demons. Even if there were occasionally corrupted spellcasters who were not firm in their positions, they would at most summon some easily controlled lower demons to drive them. This led to the upper demons obtaining less and less willpower through summoning and sacrifice, and they could no longer maintain their activity in the alien space through willpower, and could only be forced to fall into a deep sleep. The frequent loss of control and evil deeds of lower demons in the real world, in turn, confirmed the evil and danger of the demon summoning ritual, and ultimately led to the double collapse of the reputation and survival of the demon clan. This is obviously a case of bad money driving out good money, haha. Harvey couldn't help but complain when he thought of this. Mind Hunter is a unique outlier even among the special upper demons such as the Heart Demon. He loves to observe and explore, and is unwilling to give up collecting and absorbing willpower easily, so he frequently travels through the Magic Network space, constantly contacts with wanderers of other races he encounters, and carefully obtains the willpower he needs from them. However, this collection method is too covered and cautious, and to a large extent cannot arouse the other party's strong desire in their hearts, so all along his gains can only maintain basic mental activity, barely enough to prevent himself from falling asleep. No mistakes in one song, one post, one content, 1 6, 1 9, one book, one bar, take a look. Originally, he took the initiative to contact Harvey and successfully joined the Magic Network forum, so that the Mind Hunter thought that he could obtain a large amount of willpower stably from then on, and he would never have to worry about food and drink again. Who knew that this spellcaster form would completely block his innate perception? No matter how he tried, he could not absorb any willpower stimulated by the form members. When Harvey heard the inner demon complain to him about this reason with a little grievance, he couldn't help but laugh, and he also understood that the other party could not understand the operating logic and principles of the spellcaster form at all. With his own terrifying spiritual anchor as the firewall of the form, any positioning and perception from the magic network could not reach the form itself. Thinking of this, Harvey pressed the typing key of the magic brain and planned to respond to the transaction request of the Mind Hunter. Kel'Thuzad, Mr. Heart Demon, I think you don't need to trade your summoning ritual anonymously anymore. If you don't mind, I am willing to make this deal with you directly, and I will perform the ritual myself to summon you. Mind Hunter, I praise you for being a kind and curious human spellcaster, Mr. Locator. I wonder what price I need to pay this time in exchange for your help. Harvey's mouth curled up slightly, and he pressed the typing keys and typed out the transaction requirements he had prepared long ago. Kel'Thuzad, it's very simple. For this summoning ritual, I need you to bring a creature with you. I want you to personally capture a creature you mentioned before, a creature that lives in the magic net like you, a demon spirit. Chapter 110. As early as the first unexpected encounter with the Mind Hunter, Harvey had great interest in the mysterious and strange things in the magic network that it mentioned casually. Whether it is the coordinates of the rift in the alien space, the projection of the remains of the spellcaster or ancient creatures, or the traces of the magic network creatures such as the demon spirit, for Harvey, a spellcaster whose research direction is mainly biased towards the magic network, they are all precious knowledge. Only by never giving up the pursuit of knowledge can the spellcaster not easily deviate from the right direction in the way of magic. After the last dangerous adventure in the alien space rift, Harvey naturally did not dare to try to explore the rift alone, for fear of encountering the terrifying alien space weirdness like before. Without a powerful legendary spellcaster like the Scorching Lord in front, it is not easy to retreat unscathed. The projection of the remains of the spellcaster and ancient creatures also requires multiple powerful spellcasters to explore together to ensure the minimum safety. Therefore, the only thing Harvey hopes to gain from the transaction is the magical creatures of the magic network mentioned by the Mind Hunter, the demon spirits. According to Mr. Heart Demon's description, the demon spirits, which are magical creatures that have naturally formed since the birth of the magic network space, are completely different from any life forms in real cognition. This is why Harvey has never obtained any information about the demon spirits in magic books and travel notes in different spaces. This is a magical creature that even legendary spellcasters of all generations have not been able to discover. The Heart Demon clan, which can roam in the magic network space for a long time, actually knows very little about the origin of the demon spirits. They only know that they feed on the pure magic energy emitted from the magic network, have no aggression or malice, and are very good at hiding themselves, and live in the dense energy pipelines in the magic network for a long time. This is what Harvey is most concerned about, because he also has a group of magical creatures that feed on pure magic energy in the real-world energy-absorbing beetles. He vaguely feels that although the two are separated by different spatial planes, there should be a certain connection in essence. As for the danger of the sacrificial summoning ritual, Harvey will not relax or underestimate it. No matter how harmless and well-intentioned the other party is, this is after all a projection of a demon from another dimension summoned into the real world, so various precautions must be taken in advance. The first safety protection of Harvey's plan is to arrange the summoning ritual in the magic test field of the underground laboratory, with 4 guard-type alchemy beasts equipped with beetle energy blocks, which can lock the summoning array at any time. Once an accident occurs, a powerful energy beam shock wave will be released immediately to ensure that the array can be destroyed in an instant, blocking the connection channel between the real world and the other dimension. The second insurance is that Harvey asked Reiner to prepare an empty shell of an alchemical prosthesis in advance. This is an effective means for him to prevent the opponent's projection from being possessed based on the demon knowledge he had learned in the past. Reiner can control an empty shell of an alchemical prosthesis through soul connection and complete the process of the summoning ceremony remotely. Once the opponent is possessed maliciously, he will immediately use the soul connection pipeline to suck the projection formed by the opponent's mental power into the Unit 0 energy gathering array and use the spirit anchor to decisively counterattack. 2 powerful double insurances still make Harvey feel insufficient. He also plans to use the 5-ring improved magic that he has only tried once after learning at Carol's corrosion field during the summoning ceremony to form a confined space filled with strong corrosive poisonous fog in the magic test field. This can prevent a large number of accompanying inferior demons from pouring in when the two space planes are connected. These inferior demons have real flesh and blood entities. After making all the preparations, Harvey contacted the Mind Hunter again through the spellcaster forum and asked him for the sacrifices and array spells for the sacrificial summoning ceremony. Mind Hunter, in fact, the bloody sacrifices recorded in those demon summoning rituals you knew in the past are not necessary for the ritual at all. Mind Hunter, in addition to knowing the real name of the summoned target, only the drawing of the array connecting the two spatial planes needs attention. As for the sacrifices, I can say responsibly that if you can guarantee the above 2 items, even if you put a bucket of bran for pigs at the sacrificial position, you can successfully summon a demon. Harvey thought to himself that it was indeed so. The bloody sacrifices recorded in the classics of the summoning rituals were most likely used to scare away those greedy people who didn't know the height of the world, and also invisibly deterred those who wanted to try to summon in the future, making them feel fearful and discouraged. It is also possible that there are some hints and guidance from the upper demons in ancient times. After all, the fear brought by bloody sacrifices is also an effective means for demons to inspire summoners to release willpower. Harvey set the time of the summoning ceremony at midnight the next day, and arranged for Reiner and Astalin, 2 alchemical beings who are completely immune to mental attacks, to assist in the ceremony. The magic circle of the summoning ceremony is still drawn with liquid mithril with the best magic conduction performance. Of course, the ritual offerings cannot really be replaced by pig food, as Mr. Heart Demon joked. After all, it was the first real netizen meeting. Out of courtesy and respect, Harvey still asked Egno and Astalin to take out some of the magical plants with soothing effects in the warehouse, grind them carefully into powder, and burn them in incense in a similar way to the mass of believers. The clock in the laboratory just passed the midnight mark, and Harvey immediately released the 5-ring spell of the corrosion field in the spell test field, allowing the diffused poisonous fog to solidify for a long time and remain in the closed room. In the 4 corners of the test field, the guard alchemy beasts who had activated the beetle energy beam stood, and their scarlet eyes were firmly fixed on the summoning array in the middle of the room. An alchemical prosthesis stood in front of the array, with a metal energy tube connected to the back, connected to the outside of the room through the groove on the ground, and finally fixed in the slot on Reiner's waist, while Reiner himself was next to the Unit 0 energy gathering array, maintaining a charging connection state. Harvey planned to use the sound recording magic stone to replace himself in the form of chanting the ritual spell to try to complete the summoning. If it failed, let Astalin, who was immune to toxins, enter the test field in person and chant the spell to complete the summoning ceremony in person. After all, the alchemical prosthesis without soul infusion could not make a sound, so the most important step of the ceremony still needed to be performed by others. The Mind Hunter had already taught Harvey how to chant his real name in demon language, but was careful not to translate his real name. Harvey understood this very well. Once the real name of the demon is analyzed and deciphered, it is easy for them to fall into a passive controlled situation. The Church even has a powerful secret technique that can directly kill the demon by locking the real name. No mistakes, 1 post, 1 content, 1 6, 1 9, 1 book, 1 bar. The method of using the sound stone instead of chanting the spell worked directly. Reiner manipulated the alchemical prosthesis to infuse pure magic energy into the summoning array. After activating it completely, Harvey clearly felt that the laboratory began to surge with energy turbulence escaping from the magic network space. After the summoning spell was repeated 3 times, the array burst out with a thick dark red mist, which gradually gathered above the array diagram to form an invisible cyclone. Then, the cyclone split from it, outlining an irregular door-shaped hole. A pair of slender, pale, and skinny hands that were much longer than those of an ordinary person slowly stretched out from the hole and grabbed the edge of the hole, as if trying to get out of the hole. Then, an illusory, twisted, crimson figure also stretched out from the hole. A crack similar to an eyeball suddenly appeared on the head of the twisted figure, and a layered voice as if countless people were talking at the same time immediately sounded. "Hey? Who of you is Mr. Kel'Thuzad?" The figure's strangely twisted long arms were wrapped around his chest in a rather funny way, and he asked with a little doubt, "Why is there fog here? Is there an accidental fire?" Chapter 111. "Hey? Who are you, Mr. Kel'Thuzad?" asked the Kali with a little confused. "Is it on fire here? It's so smoky." The few people in the laboratory who were facing a great enemy fell into an awkward silence for a moment. Harvey breathed a sigh of relief, walked to the ventilation joystick outside the magic test site, raised his hand to pull the instrument joystick, and quickly sucked and discharged the corrosion-toxic fog that was spreading in the test site. He walked to the glass door, his head slightly close to the transparent glass, and shouted in a low voice, "Mr. Incense Demon, I am Kelthujid, I am very happy to see you." The devil's illusory twisted figure flashed instantly, and he came to the glass door. Like Harvey, he also put his head funny on the glass and greeted Harvey through the glass. "I'm also very happy to see you, Mr. Kelthuzid." He blinked quickly on his head that looked like a one-eyed gap, and said in a sigh, "Well, I can feel the joy and curiosity conveyed by you. These two emotions have brought me a lot of willingness to absorb, and I am very grateful for this." Harvey couldn't help but complain in his heart. It turned out that the door-to-door meal with clear goals was coming. I hope he did not forget the previous transaction agreement. The inner demon seemed to immediately sense Harvey's thoughts and let out a kind laugh. "Haha, what does it mean to go to the door to eat? Are you going to hold a welcome party for my arrival? This will make me feel a little embarrassed." A crack that suddenly broke into the devil's chest and abdomen that was larger than the eyeballs of his head. He waved his twisted and slender arms and penetrated straight into his chest and a soft orb from it. "This is the meeting gift I promised before. Of course, I will not forget the living demon spirit you want. I still specially captured adult bodies. They survive in the real world longer than in the young bodies, and will make it easier for you to last longer." Observational experiment. Harvey saw the sphere held in the inner demon's hand through the glass door, and instantly attracted all his attention. This is a soft orb about the size of an ostrich egg, completely transparent, and it seems to be filled with some unknown liquid, and a strange creature like a tadpole slowly swims. Is this living demon spirit? The appearance of this thing is obviously different from the magic net creature Harvey imagined. Chun Chun is a giant big-headed tadpole. He turned his head and nodded slightly to Astarin who was guarding the side, and the other party immediately pulled the laboratory door gate. The glass door between Harvey and the inner demon slid open to both sides. Harvey reached forward with his hands and carefully took the huge water droplet containing the demon spirit from the inner demon's hand. What is stored here is the unique liquid magic energy in the magic network space energy pipeline. The demon spirit can only survive in this liquid, just like a fish cannot live without water, but the liquid magic energy will gradually become in the real world. Evaporates and evaporates, so it can last for about 3 days at most. Harvey nodded and expressed his gratitude for Mr. Soul Hunter's kind explanation. "Mr. Inner Demon, then you shouldn't mind me conducting this experiment immediately, right? There is an analysis about a creature like demon spirit." The other party shrugged with understanding. "Of course, for you short-lived species, time is money. I fully understand it, and I can only raise the areas that need my cooperation." Harvey led him to the laboratory bench outside the laboratory, and Reiner was there early to prepare all the materials and instruments needed for this time. Harvey picked up a crystal-clear beetle ore and handed it to the inner demon. "Please see, this solid mineral condensed entirely from pure magic energy is essentially the same as the liquid magic energy that is decorated with the demon spirit." Harvey then showed him the process of the magic gun igniting the energy beam, and after the magic array and magic inscriptions are converted, this pure magic energy is converted from solid state to gaseous energy beam. So I suspect that the magic energy everywhere in the magic net itself has 3 different forms: liquid, gas and solid. The inner demon raised the beetle ore in his hand to the one-eyed person to observe carefully. The interesting idea is indeed only human spellcasters can have such advanced wisdom and creativity. He pointed to the beetle fixed on the instrument bracket and struggled and twisted. "So, do you suspect that the existence of the demon spirit and this beetle is the key to transforming the 3 forms of magic energy?" Harvey smiled in agreement, and it was so pleasant to exchange academic knowledge with the ancient intelligent race. Astarin and Reiner obviously need to keep a close eye on this guest in the alien space at all times, so all the experiment processes need to be operated by Harvey himself. The purpose of my experiment is to verify that since the inscription can change the form of magic energy. If I engrave miniature magic arrays or inscriptions on the bodies of demon spirits and beetles, can they be directly turned into living bodies? Energy conversion device. The inner demon immediately burst into laughter by this imaginary experimental idea. "It's so interesting, but unfortunately I can't read your deep thinking. After all, your spiritual anchor is too stable. I really want to know your brain. How many such shocking ideas are installed in it?" Harvey didn't mind the slightly impolite words of the inner demon, so he raised his hand and signaled to the other party. Then let's work together to complete this interesting experiment. Harvey and the spirit hunter surrounded the experimental bench, putting the beetle ore and the living demon spirit into a transparent crystal cover, and manipulating the mage's hand to start drawing the magic inscription from the air. When Harvey was an apprentice of a mage, he studied and recited the inscriptions and symbols that he was familiar with. Each of them represented a unique magical meaning used to express oneself or the surrounding magical energy in different forms. A large number of symbols represent the increase, decrease, balance, coordination, and transformation of energy. Occasionally, there are some more complex symbols with special multiple meanings, or single elements, energy annihilation, tremor fluctuations, etc. The creation and improvement of spells by legendary spellcasters is essentially an innovation and adjustment of inscription symbols. A large number of various inscriptions were quickly engraved on the beetle ore the size of a fist. They only need to be connected in series with specific connectors to form a brand new miniature magic array. There is no mistake. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 619, 1 book, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, a book. The inner demon suddenly raised his hand and pressed it on the arm of Harvey's manipulation of the mage's hand, and whispered, "Please wait, I think a new inscription symbol can be added." As he said, he stretched out his finger and dipped it in a bottle of magic solvent that was opened and sealed, quickly drawing an inscription symbol that Harvey had never seen before on the silver-white metal test bench. The meaning of this inscription symbol is... Harvey frowned slightly, not sure of his judgment, the fusion of balance and coordination inscriptions. But it simplified a lot. The inner demon smiled and said, "The ancient expression meaning represents order. The two inscriptions of balance and coordination should be derived from this." Harvey nodded in agreement, immediately added the ancient inscription symbol to the drawing, and quickly completed the inscription tandem. The miniature array on the surface of the beetle ore immediately solidified, and a shining light was refracted through the crystal glass cover. This light flashed in an instant, and the body of the beetle ore disappeared into the crystal cover. A strange phenomenon occurred, but the inscriptions that were solidified and linked by the magic array thus separated from the ore carrier, freely suspended in the crystal cover, and slowly and irregularly swam like a mayfly. The experienced spirit hunter immediately judged, the ore has been converted from solid energy to gaseous state, otherwise these symbols will not be left in the cover out of thin air. Your experimental guess is indeed correct. Harvey was sharp-eyed to find the gradual changes of these inscriptions. Look, they are adjusting the rules of swimming and actively arranging and combining. It's order. Mr. Inner Demon, the order inscription you finally added to me has affected their activity rules, so that these living inscriptions are lined up neatly like soldiers. The inner demon may just think this is an interesting energy form conversion experiment. But in the eyes of Harvey, the time traveler, these inscriptions that come alive and have independent consciousness have completely different meanings. Their regular arrangement and fixed combination forms are in Harvey's eyes. Just like the periodic table of elements, or the original computer language. Have an unparalleled beauty of order. Chapter 112. Asterin and the demon spirit hunter walked side by side on the streets of citizens under the pioneering leadership. Harvey cared about the fact that Mr. Inner Demon came from afar, equipped with a set of alchemy prosthetic bodies that can directly accommodate his mental projection. However, the function was slightly different from other models. It had neither auxiliary functions nor combat configuration, and at best it could only be considered as just able to walk on your legs. After all, the residents of the territory are already very familiar with all kinds of alchemy beasts, and they can turn a blind eye to the zombies that appear occasionally in the middle of the night. However, the projection form of the inner demon is too weird and terrifying. It is easy to scare ordinary people when going out, so it is safer to transfer to the alchemy body. Mr. Asterin, why are these leaders willing to do these things spontaneously without supervisors? The inner demon kept asking questions all the way, asking all the things he thought were strange in the territory. Asterin is the best patient among Harvey and the others. After all, they are the same as the demons, and they don't think they are wasting time and life. You mean the work of spontaneously cleaning the streets near your residence? That really doesn't require supervision. They just want to make their homes clean, and not slip on the ice surface condensed by the melting snow. While explaining, he pointed to the two-story cement building that was as uniform as copy-pasted on both sides of the street. In the early stage of construction, the territory was divided into blocks of the living areas of residence, and the Lord called it the community system. This plan was and management methods are very scientific and effective. The inner demon was silent for a moment, as if trying to understand the weird new words that emerged from Asteron's mouth. Well, I can feel the vigorous will from the people who work spontaneously on these streets, from their very positive emotions, with expectations, satisfaction, and joy. Asteron chuckled when he heard this. This is why lords ask you to go out. It's not just to invite you to visit the territory, but also to facilitate you to collect, your desire. When talking about this topic, the inner demon immediately expressed his sincere gratitude. Indeed, Mr. Kel'Thuzad had helped me far more than the small price I paid him. Then he sighed with a little regret. What a pity, the wishes I have absorbed so far are all positive emotions. Even those workers who braved the heavy snow to work in such cold weather, no resentment or dissatisfaction was released. It's like a sumptuous banquet in front of me, but I found that they were all the same taste. Although they were still delicious, I always felt that the texture was not rich enough. Asteron was glad that he had no flesh and blood, otherwise he would have rolled his eyes immediately. He couldn't help but think of the catchphrase that Lord Harvey often talked about: it would be great if he had it. What else would he want to have a bicycle? The two of them laughed and chatted, wandering all the way through the residential and market areas where crowds of people, and happened to meet a line of patrol soldiers from the Defense Army walking by. Hey? Haha. I finally felt a trace of negative emotions. It's not bad. The inner demon stared at the soldiers who were neatly lined up and gradually moved away, and turned to chuckled at Asteron. What? Do soldiers in the army have negative emotions? Asteron immediately noticed something was wrong. After experiencing 2 assassinations, he is now a little nervous when facing similar problems. When he and Pierce started to investigate and clean up the internal army some time ago, he always felt that everyone looked like spies sent from the southern border. But I can't blame Asteron for being so sensitive. After all, soldiers are the only armed personnel in the territory holding weapons. Once there is a problem within them, it will be the biggest threat to the safety of the Lord. He immediately asked Zinmo in a serious tone, "Are you sure there is a strong negative emotion among the soldiers just now? Mr. Zinmo, please be sure to inform me of his accurate thoughts. Is it hatred? Resentment? Or greed?" The inner demon was stunned by his serious attitude, and then he paused before teasing, "None of them." He pointed to a young soldier who was in the head of the soldiers' ranks far away and was obviously a grassroots officer. The strong negative emotions came from the young soldier, a strong sense of loss and sorrow. From his thoughts, I learned that he confessed to a girl he liked last night, but when he received it, he just treated him as a brotherly beloved reply. Asteron slipped his feet and almost slid on the frozen road with a split. It seems that this negative emotion is indeed very strong. The 2 armies currently officially formed in the territory have reached a total of nearly 4,000 people. Most of them are young refugees from the northern wastelands. 80% of this group are young and strong bachelors. It seems that next time we need to consider how to solve the marriage and love problems of this group of bachelor soldiers and avoid the unstoppable commotion and chaos in the army. Asteron silently kept this matter in his heart. Mr. Inner Demon, why don't you follow me to visit the Defense Army's camp next? Let you see this group of hungry bachelors who are trained like cows and horses every day, so as to absorb their resentment. Nympho. After Harvey sent out the castle by Mr. Demon from the alien space plane, he conducted a follow-up study on the living inscription. After all, the next research experiment requires 2 completely different knowledge structures he has experienced in 2 lives. The inner demon is completely helpless in this regard. After successfully transforming the demon spirit into a living inscription form, Harvey once again confirmed the feasibility of his experimental plan. No mistakes, 1 post, 1 content, 1 6, 1 9, 1 book, 1 bar. Once this plan is successful, he will not have to rely solely on the 2 huge planetary energy gathering arrays in the military factory to power various magic production projects. Instead, the magic stone veins that have not been developed and utilized under the castle can be directly transformed into the main energy supply core to directly power all energy-driven alchemical creatures and production equipment in the territory. At that time, alchemical life such as Reiner and Astalin will not need to connect to the pipeline for charging all the time, and the magic network covering the entire territory will realize a powerful function similar to wireless charging. It can also upgrade the magic network caster form in a leapfrog manner, no longer limited by the capacity and frequency of communication transmission, and at the same time make the form's various information feedback reception work directly converted to full intelligence. Create a truly magic Internet of Things. This plan has always existed in Harvey's mind, but he couldn't find a solution to implement it before. Now the source code is available, living inscription. And the server has been prepared, the underground magic stone vein. What is missing is the last step. An entry-level programmer who only learned C language for a few days in college. Chapter 113. Harvey, Astarin, and Reiner stood in the underground magic stone cave that had just been reinforced. Sir, this won't really cause any surprise. Reiner looked at hundreds of mini versions of the wolf spider beasts, crawling back and forth on the thick magic stone crystal pillars in the mine, using magic energy to guide. The living inscription floating in the air is attached to the crystal. This is located directly under the castle. If Reiner remembered the incident of the beetle magic stone experiment, and directly exploded a piece of his breastplate, and was still worried. Harvey held a crystal panel with mitral material inlaid with a frame and comforted her with a smile. Don't worry, most of the runes in this batch of living inscriptions are mainly stable and guided, and once energy transmission occurs abnormal, they will actively transmit the overflowing energy to deeper strata. If the caster's mental power is compared to the signal transceiver transmitted by a wireless network, and the positioning magic pattern is used as the local area network of the data terminal, then if you want to achieve data propagation across real distances, building a server matrix is essential. But no single magic network energy carrier can carry the magic internet data that thousands of people are linked at the same time. The data transmission limit of a planetary energy gathering array is that it has a capacity of less than 100 people, and it also needs to ensure the operation of the magic network transmission array at the same time. There are often network congestion situations, and occasionally overheating and downtime. But Harvey knows the concept of real internet data transmission. After all, he was also a level 10 keyboard surfer in his previous life. It is clear that the internet data on the Earth can be described as a digital torrent, compared with the form he currently founded. Like a drop in the ocean and the sea of stars. The planetary energy gathering array can only be regarded as a Ubisoft mature potato at best, but Harvey's goal is to build at least one potato plantation. At this time, the carrier that can store a huge amount of living inscriptions, the natural giant magic stone vein, is the best solution to the experimental plan. When Mr. Inner Demon left, he made an appointment in advance for the next visit. Astarin suddenly changed the topic. He promised to bring more living demon spirits when he next visits. Harvey nodded with satisfaction. It seemed that this door dining trip made the high-level demon very satisfied, so that he stayed in the real world until he could no longer maintain the projection of his mental power. Farewell. Living demon spirit is a material that is more suitable for converting inscriptions than energy-absorbing beetles. Naturally, the more it is better to transform inscriptions. The three of them stayed in the mine until midnight, and finally commanded the group of miniature wolf spider beasts to attach all the living inscriptions to the magic stone crystal pillar. Harvey picked up the crystal panel in his hand and tried to inject the magic energy from his fingertips into it. A few seconds later, a faint white light lit up in the crystal panel, and mercury tadpoles like magic brain crystal display began to appear on the board. They slowly swim on the screen, and finally gradually gathered together to form specific text. The wireless network login version magic brain instrument was considered a successful experiment. However, it is currently limited to the areas that the mine vein server can cover, which can almost guarantee wireless network coverage within the territory. Once this distance exceeds this distance, you still have to rely on the forum set up in the magic network space to ensure data transmission. Big. Sir. Look at me. Reiner suddenly screamed, pointing at the charging slots of himself in Astarin's alchemy prosthetic body. I feel like I'm charging, God, I obviously don't have wires. From the magic stone or vein crystal column, several thin pure white lines spread out, which naturally floated and touched the two alchemy life's charging slots, connecting them with the ore vein crystal column. Harvey smiled calmly and said, "Don't worry, this is what I said, wireless charging technology. In the future, you don't have to be next to the energy gathering array regularly, plug in a cable to charge. As long as you walk within the territory, you will receive magic energy transmitted from underground space all the time." Astarin couldn't help but exclaim, "This is the value and purpose of magic and knowledge that truly transcends the times. This is nothing, it's just some basic functions." Harvey was slightly proud. After the living inscriptions have completed the coverage of all the ore vein crystal columns, there are more and better functions for us to develop and use. At that time, whether it is a military factory or other civilian production workshops in the territory, they can invest in large quantities of alchemy beasts. Only a few human workers can be manipulated to complete super high production and manufacturing tasks. Magic bullets, which have always been limited by raw material output, no longer need to wait for energy-absorbing beetles to reproduce or to decompose. They can directly use the magic filling technology to produce bullets in large quantities, and then I don't feel sorry for the daily training of the army. Harvey looked at the crystal panel in his hand that maintained a normal wireless connection with the Mind Vein server and began to imagine his upcoming forum upgrade plan. In addition to the daily information exchange sector and the anonymous consignment sector, some additional forum functions can be added. The accessibility of new members can be slightly relaxed, but the recommendation guarantee mechanism for startup members is still necessary. After all, they are the first beneficiaries of participating in forum exchanges, so they will naturally strictly monitor each other. After Harvey didn't want to let go of his authority to join, the forum had a flood of advanced spellcasters with unfriendly attitudes and relationships. Most of these people were organized behind them. There is no mistake. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 619, 1 book, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, a book. If a group of mad dog-like church priests accidentally came in one day and suddenly shouted "The glory is above" at the exchange meeting, the scene would be embarrassing. However, the backgrounds of the forum members are relatively complex. The standards and choices for inviting and recommending newcomers to join the club are relatively more subjective, and most of them are biased. They prefer to win over spellcasters who originally had a good relationship with them in reality. Joining the forum also leads to the faction of small and medium-sized groups currently in the forum, and the group is closely linked. It seems that a unified forum entry standards needs to be established. Harvey couldn't help but curl up his lips, thinking of some social platforms he often mingled in his previous life, and launched a registered account questionnaire. This is a very practical and fair way to filter members. The first criterion to be determined is that you must be a high-level spellcaster to be qualified to join the society. Intermediate or below can only be considered as league seedlings. Harvey feels that there is no benefit to them, and their knowledge in many aspects the reserves are even worse than yourself. Secondly, Harvey immediately thought of the accident when he was attacked by the witch hunter, and the evil deeds of the witch hunter who had caused all members of the forum to unite against the enemy, and he had to add one more important thing: the church and the dog are not allowed to join the society. Finally, you can also bring some private goods. Humph, don't some orthodox spellcasters look down on the Necromancer? Then let's have a test question. What attitude do you have towards the casters of the Necromancer faction? Chapter 114. The Elf City of the Mist Mountains, Golden Forest, Lorien. A pure white wizard tower built on a tall golden canopy. This magic brain instrument was shipped from DOS for your subsequent joining the forum. The big druid Karel Randy pointed to the tree bark desk, and a delicate and compact alchemy instrument was faintly said. Another high elf sitting at the desk, tall and thin, handsome face but no real age was visible. He stretched out his slender fingers and gently stroked the brass-colored body of the magic brain instrument. Is there still no way to track the instrument's manufacturer from DOS? Karel Randy pondered for a moment before slowly answering. They were made in parts in advance, and then sent to Deis from different countries and chambers of commerce, and were sent to Deis by the Alchemy Secret Society in Deis. Branch Workshop, assembled and stored in the Longshi Chamber of Commerce for consignment. He paused and added, behind the Dragonstone Chamber of Commerce is the Salas family of Orland. We cannot investigate and offend them rashly. Moreover, to purchase magic brain instruments, we must directly present the exclusive code of the forum. Only one instrument is purchased for each code. Yaragon, start the magic brain instrument, log in and create a unique code for yourself. Now the forum has released the accession authority, and as long as it passes the membership, well, the membership questionnaire survey can be directly joined. The High Elf Yaragon nodded, agreeing not to continue to worry about the secret background of the forum. He reached out and took out a light green magic stone from the herb bag on his waist and stuffed it into the slot of the magic brain instrument. Hello, dear spellcaster, welcome to the MagicNet Spellcaster Forum. On behalf of the administrator Mr. Turing, I would like to greet you. Karel Randy exclaimed in surprise, bent her waist and approached the crystal screen of the demon brain, and murmured in confusion, I log into the forum on weekdays, why have I never received a welcome speech? Yaragon chuckled, maybe this is a special treatment for the new member to join. Characters on the crystal screen continue to scroll, revealing new text content. Before conducting the forum joining questionnaire, please carefully read the entry instructions of the Spellcaster Forum. This is to help new members understand the specific requirements and expected rights and responsibilities of joining the forum. The High Elf whistled frivolously. Wow, this is the most rigorous and official, secret underground organization I have ever seen, Uncle Kirill. I think you should like this old-fashioned communication atmosphere very much, right? The big druid snorted a little annoyed, and did not want to talk. He walked straight to the window of the treehouse mage tower, and urged himself, answer the questions as soon as possible and complete the requirements for joining the society. As of now, we elves are casting the spell. I am the only one in the forum, and I am weak, which makes me too passive. Didn't we reach a private agreement with those dwarves who love to dig holes to help each other? Yaragon asked in confusion. Did those sluts have turned their back on their promises again? Carol Randy turned her head and whispered, that's not the case. The proportion of human spellcasters in the forum is too high. They are often excluded and suppressed. However, we always have different interests and goals, so we should have more people. Better. The young advanced druid nodded to show his understanding, pressed the button on the magic brain instrument again and entered the forum to join the meeting and answer the questions. May I ask, do you accept the free academic exchange atmosphere in the forum? Please directly select yes or no. Interesting. This is the most basic attitude test, of course you should choose yes. I would like to ask, do you agree with the concept that all knowledge in the forum should be open and shared? Well, I'm afraid the forum members will not really do this in private, but they naturally need to agree on the surface. May I ask, what identities do you think exist, should not or are not qualified to enter the forum? You can choose multiple choices. Yaragon narrowed his eyes slightly, looking at the several options appearing below, and couldn't help frowning. Demon Clan? Sea Clan? Giant? The Glorious Priest and the Undead Mage. He couldn't help but turn his head and look at his uncle, wonderingly. Uncle Karel, there are really these, members of the ancient race in the forum? Why doesn't it just put the dragon and the demons at it? Carol Randy couldn't help but come over and thought for a moment, the forum is indeed suspected to exist. Many members of other ancient races have one who was highly suspected to be a demon in the alien space before. He coughed lightly and made a rational judgment, considering that the administrator Mr. Turing is very likely to be a member of the above ancient race. I suggest you keep the first few options and rule out the few low-key things in the latter category. Yaragon nodded obediently and pressed the typewriter button to mark the candidate who is not qualified to enter the forum as the Raven Priest and the Dead Mage. How do you view the core purpose of inclusion proposed by the forum? Will the forum members be treated differently due to conflicts in real identities? The young high elf turned his help-seeking gaze to the great druid again. Uncle, are you sure this is not a consultant hiring contract for the Spellcasters Federation? Karel Randy said angrily, real contradictions are real contradictions. Even if you pretend to behave in the forum, you have to pretend to be kind. What's the difficulty in doing on the surface? He brushed away the hand that Yaragon placed on the magic brain instrument, decisively pressed the button to select no, and then hit the OK button, ending the questionnaire survey with just a few lines. The mercury tadpoles on the crystal screen twisted and reorganized quickly, and a line of deep red text appeared in an instant. I'm sorry, your attitude and ideas are inconsistent with the core purpose of this forum, and you failed to pass the forum questionnaire survey. What? The two high elves were stunned at the same time. No mistakes, 1 post, 1 content, 1 6, 1 9, 1 book, 1 bar. On the outskirts of the capital of Orland, on the top floor of a soaring wizard tower. 2 elegant and thin spellcasters sat side by side in front of a luxurious desk made of mahogany. On the desk, 2 exquisite brass magic brain instruments were close together. The forum codes of the 2 spellcasters flashed on the crystal screen. Astrologer and Eye of Illusion. An owl-shaped spell messenger flapped its wings and crashed in from the open window of the wizard tower. The astrologer stood up and walked to it. As the messenger turned to ashes, he took out a yellowed note from it. How to answer the third question of the membership questionnaire. If you know the true identity of a forum member in the real world, are you willing to keep it secret for the other party unconditionally? Reply quickly. Very urgent. The astrologer handed the note to the Eye of Illusion, and the two smiled at each other for a moment. This question seems to be specially prepared for those of us who have met in real life and know the other party's background and identity to some extent. The astrologer slowly walked to the shelf next to the desk, took down a crystal ball with dim spots on the surface, and gently stroked it. My destiny star has some hints of fluctuations. I suspect that if I don't answer the questionnaire according to my heart, I will most likely be locked by the forum and marked as one of the unqualified or suspicious members. The Eye of Illusion said uncertainly, do you think the forum can lock our position in the real world through the connection between members in the magic network? The astrologer chuckled noncommittally, what's the big deal? Compared with the knowledge and benefits gained in the forum, taking such a small risk is completely acceptable. Write him a reply and say that this questionnaire should be regarded as a magic contract with rule effect. All questions should be answered according to your heart. Chapter 115. Harvey sat in front of the forum server of Magic Brain, watching the red dots flashing on the crystal screen. Each dot represented a new member's questionnaire survey failure, and was directly rejected by the intelligent audit system he had just written. No. How can you fail even if you just copy the answers? Isn't the core purpose of the forum always kept at the top of the message exchange interface in the most conspicuous place? Has anyone read it carefully? He stood up a little annoyed and paced back and forth in the laboratory. Okay, you are a group of double-standard people in reality and on the internet, you are one thing on the surface and another behind the scenes, right? It was said that there was freedom, tolerance, openness, anonymity, but in the end, the membership rights were really opened up, and most of them did not meet the forum membership standards. What's the difference between opening this right and not opening it? Wait. Harvey seemed to have thought of something, and quickly sat back in front of the Magic Brain instrument and clicked on one of the multiple-choice questions in the questionnaire survey. Then he suddenly discovered that 90% of the new members had failed the multiple-choice question that Harvey had smuggled in private goods. Church priests and necromancers are generally considered unqualified to join the spellcaster forum. This is simply naked occupational discrimination. Too much. Humph. You look down on necromancers who are also spellcasters, right? Well, I will find a way to get the contact information of high-level necromancers, let a large number of necromancers in, and bully you, a bunch of hateful double-standard monsters. The Papal States, the city of Grace Goris. Bishop Tosa Ismail held a holy book inlaid with gold and gems on the surface, and walked along the circular stairs of the Grace Cathedral to the depths of the church. The Grace Cathedral is the second most magnificent building in the city of Grace after the glorious cathedral. It is located in a low valley in the city of Goris. There is a huge naturally formed pit under the church. This pit suddenly appeared after an unexpected natural disaster earthquake when the Papal States was first built. The depth can accommodate at least 4 wizard towers, and the diameter is about 30 feet wide. The surrounding stone walls have been reinforced by believers for many years, turning into a huge underground space. There is no dim light here. There is a huge hole on the high dome as a skylight. At noon, the light will directly penetrate into the ground, like a beam of holy light from the kingdom of God illuminating the entire space. As a priest at the bishop level, Tosa Ismail can directly use the flying magic to descend from above to the ground, but out of respect and fear for God, the entire Grace City prohibits anyone from using the magic to fly. So he always walks from the church to the ground, and walks down slowly step by step along the seemingly endless circular stone steps, although he has never seriously counted how many steps he has walked. If the most magnificent building in Goris is the Cathedral of Glory, which is a symbol of the church's piety and divinity, then the Saints' Gap, located under the Church of Grace, is the true confidential core of the church. The headquarters of the Inquisition, the most important armed force of the church to maintain the rule of believers, was built here. After walking up the long spiral staircase and reaching the bottom of the Saints' Gap, you can see that almost every 50 steps, there will be several judges who have awakened their blood talents standing guard. There are also many judges in the machine rooms on both sides of the stone corridor, and they live here and are ready at any time. Many judges who are responsible for guarding, once they enter the Saints' Gap and accept the duty of guarding, will spend their lives in the dark underground, and will never have the opportunity to return to the ground to bathe in the glory of God. This is not the first time that Ismail has come here, so no one has stopped him from moving forward, but they all stared at him silently and walked towards the deepest part of the Saints' Gap. The bishop walked forward, passing by the living area of the Inquisition, the archives of the church, the imprisonment area for pagans and degenerates. Finally, he stopped and came to the privy district of the agency at the end. Only priests of the bishop level and above are qualified to enter this area. All the research and analysis of the church's divine arts and holy vessels come from here, and it is guarded by the chief judge of the Inquisition. He stopped at the gate of the privy district for a moment, turned left and entered a narrow corridor, and soon came to the door of a prayer room. The gatekeeper immediately clenched his sword and knelt on one knee to salute, Bishop Ismail. Ismail nodded slightly. Is His Holiness in the prayer room now? The Inquisition stood up neatly and replied in a low voice, His Holiness has been waiting for you for a long time in there. Ismail was refreshed when he heard the words, raised his hand to push open the door of the prayer room, and walked in. This secret prayer room deep in the secret area of the agency is not very large. Ismail walked around a simple wooden screen standing at the door and immediately had a panoramic view of the entire scene inside. There was no extra decoration or furniture. The floor was grey and black. At the end, a simple stone platform was built against the wall. A row of brass lamps were placed on it. The slightly swaying flames in the lamps illuminated the room and also reflected the figure of a hunchbacked old man praying on the ground in front of the stone platform. Your Holiness, I'm here. The hunchbacked old man seemed to be hard of hearing and still lay on the ground without any response. Ismail did not call him again and stood behind him calmly, waiting for his response. After a long time, the old man's body suddenly trembled slightly, and he seemed to have come to his senses and let out a long sigh. He slowly stood up and whispered, What time is it now? No mistake, 1 post, 1 content, 1 book, 1 forum. It's just past noon, Your Majesty. Bishop Ismail took 2 steps forward, helped His Majesty the Pope up from the ground, and wiped the dust off his grey robe for him. The Pope, who was dressed like an ordinary low-level priest, coughed a few times, raised his hand and pointed at the burning brass lamp on the stone platform, and muttered to himself, 7 days ago, when I was praying, I found that the lamp of divine enlightenment was abnormal. That's why I summoned you. He let go of Ismail's hand that was supporting him, and slowly walked to the lamp on the stone platform. His skinny palm slowly brushed over the flames of a row of lamps, making the originally bean-sized candle flames instantly burst into a strong golden light. The light flashed and disappeared, and as the Pope gently put down his hand, it gradually returned to its original state. Ismail hesitated for a moment before asking, The lamp of divine revelation has never shown any abnormality in the past 100 years, is it? The Pope interrupted the bishop's question with a laugh, Are you trying to say, am I old and blurry, and am I seeing it wrong? He turned his head and made eye contact with the bishop, and his slightly narrowed eyes on his old and wrinkled face suddenly released a sharp light. I am not seeing wrong, these 12 lights represent an absolutely evil and absolutely corrupt demon. Since God has given me revelation, it means that an ancient superior demon marked by my Lord has been summoned to the world. Chapter 116. As night fell, Tong Chui finished his day's work and rode a dwarf goat back to his residence from the underground mineral laboratory in the cave city. Tong Chui, how about going to the banquet with me tonight? Nolly was about to go out and called his brother who was about to go into the study, Those nobles from the fiefdoms have come to the city, I have to have a good exchange of feelings with them. In the breadth of the hills where the dwarves are located, there are often dwarf nobles from the fiefdoms coming to the capital cave city. As the current leader of the cave dwarves, Nolly has many social events at night. I won't go. I feel upset when I see those nobles who are obsessed with money and keep an eye on the share of ore transactions all day long. Compared to the hypocritical greetings at the cocktail party, he prefers to sit quietly in front of the magic brain instrument with a beer in his hand, enter the spellcaster forum, and have in-depth exchanges with the members inside. What's more, the forum suddenly issued a mysterious announcement 3 days ago, announcing that a new forum function will be launched today, and Tong Chui was lucky enough to be selected to become one of the members responsible for testing the new function. What an honor! It completely represents that the spellcaster forum and the administrator Mr. Turing recognize his contribution to the forum as a founding member, as well as his status and reputation in the forum. Without waiting for the waiter to bring the beer and dinner, the dwarf sat in front of the magic brain anxiously, tapping the keys, and entering his own exclusive code to log in. The new forum section has indeed been suspended at the top of the chat room interface, just behind the public chat room, information exchange, anonymous consignment, and other sections. Magic Tower? What does this mean? Why does the new section have such an ordinary name? Several member codes are flashing on the crystal screen, which means that there are forum members who are applying to communicate with Tong Chui alone, but he doesn't have time to deal with these people at this time. Move the key to gently select Magic Tower, and the crystal screen instantly switches to an illusory image scene, a simple silver frame floats to the center, and a line of text slowly appears inside. Dear forum member, Mr. Frost Giant, congratulations on your qualification to participate in the test of Magic Tower. Next, I will explain to you in detail the specific use and operation methods of this new function. Bronze Hammer couldn't help but laugh out loud, shaking his head and secretly proud. In ancient times where the specific year cannot be traced, there is a magnificent magic tower in an unknown dangerous ruins. Why do you start telling a story? Is this a hint of a secret history in the forum? Bronze Hammer took the beer brought by the waiter, took a sip absent-mindedly, and continued to read patiently. Powerful spellcasters from all over the world gathered under this strange magic building, hoping to climb this tower that soars into the clouds and obtain the mysterious magic treasure buried on the top of the tower. And you are one of these many spellcasters. May I ask, are you willing to start this difficult and dangerous journey to the top? The dwarf narrowed his eyes, staring at the text content appearing on the crystal screen, and said to himself, "This is, asking me to play a role in this story, and then complete this adventure on his behalf." He couldn't help laughing. Isn't this just the magic web version of the Adventure House game? Nolly's son and those little guys must like it very much. He pressed the option button decisively and clicked to start, and the original illusory tower scene immediately changed to the scene inside the bottom of the tower. Adventurer, please choose your character profession first. Arcane, element, blood, nature, death, fate. Tong Chui smiled knowingly. The occupational hints contained in these many options are very obvious, which are exactly the different common factions of spellcasters in the real world. But why join blood and death? Blood Knight and Necromancer, such a rubbish profession, what qualifications do they have to exist side by side with elemental and arcane spellcasters? The dwarf himself was originally a high-level elemental mage who was good at earth magic, so he subconsciously decided to choose this profession to complete this virtual adventure. The picture on the crystal screen changed again, and a stack of virtual cards with beautiful patterns and texts appeared in front of him. Is this asking me to choose the spells that my character is good at? Why are they all first-level spells? The forum expects me to climb this wizard ruins with these tricks of junior spellcasters? Outrageous! Although he ruthlessly complained, Tong Chui's hands still honestly selected the elemental spells he was familiar with. Earth Shield is good, it can both defend and block the enemy. Quicksand is also okay, and Slow Spell is also brought. Falling Rocks are considered to be slightly offensive among the first-level spells. Bring it! The dwarf picked and chose, and filled all the 10 spell slots reserved in advance below the card. Okay. Let's start. Let me see how amazing the monsters and enemies in this magic tower are. 10 minutes later, Tong Chui's hand on the magic brain instrument button trembled slightly. His face also looked a little red, but it was not because he drank. It was because of anger. The spellcaster he played had just entered the magic tower and collapsed on the first floor. That's right. His adventure lasted only 10 minutes before the spellcaster was defeated and killed. The one guarding the first floor of the magic tower is a metal monster that doesn't look too powerful from the image. Tong Chui judged from the appearance that the other party was an alchemical creature and had no means of attacking with magic. He confidently chose to build an earth shield, and then played the card representing the rockfall spell, planning to directly bombard the opponent's energy core and destroy him on the spot. Damn it! Damn it! How could an alchemical beast have a thorn shield? His physical armor is so thick. Earth magic can't break his double defense at all. Tong Chui used up all the 10 magic cards in his hand, but failed to defeat it successfully. In the end, he died helplessly from a physical beating from the alchemical beast. Not willing to accept it. There are many kinds of magic that can deal with alchemical creatures, but he was unlucky to choose all the same magic. He can only blame himself for underestimating the enemy. No mistakes in one song, one post, one content, one book, one bar. Another game. This time he decided to make good use of the limited card slots in his hand, and use the spells that can really restrain the alchemical creatures to defeat this abominable metal lump. Half an hour later. Why can this guy, who has been destroyed by me, reassemble 2 new alchemical creatures from his broken body and give me a fatal blow while my cards are exhausted? No. There must be something wrong with my battle strategy. Think about it again. Maybe changing a few spell cards will have a miraculous effect. An hour later. Tong Chui's hands began to tremble slightly again, and a thin layer of hot sweat oozed out of his vest. This time, he not only successfully destroyed the main body of the alchemical creature, but also defended against the surprise attack of the 2 reassembled metal monsters in advance. There are still 3 cards left in his hand, 1 defensive spell, 1 offensive spell, and 1 auxiliary spell. On the top of his character's head, the red dot representing the health value is only 6 points left, which also means that in the absence of defensive spells, the opponent can kill him on the spot with just one hit. Should I take the risk and attack proactively, or use defense to delay for a round? The dwarf felt that his next choice would determine the final fate of the character in this game. He was unwilling to lose so many games, and he was eager to win and justify his wisdom and decision as a spellcaster. Just as he was hesitating, the upper left corner of the crystal screen suddenly jumped and a brand new card popped up. This card was slightly different from the white border he had chosen, and it had a green border. Brave spellcaster, congratulations! When exploring the first floor of the magic tower, you accidentally obtained a low-level elemental magic weapon, the dwarf's secret hammer. It can only be used once in a single battle, and the effects it provides are armor breaking and stun. Are you willing to collect this card and use it to defeat powerful enemies? The copper hammer widened his eyes and showed an ecstatic look. There is such an unexpected gain? This just makes up for the disadvantage of the lack of offensiveness of the cards in his hand. It seems that fate has blessed me with a sure win in this game. He decisively clicked on the card and put it in his pocket. Chapter 117. Felholden looked at the crystal screen, and the crystal monster that had tortured him for 3 hours finally shattered after he played the last attack spell card with all his strength. Haha! Damn stone monster! Do you know how powerful Grandpa's big fireball is? He sat at the desk and raised his arms to cheer, and the whole study echoed with his excited shouts. Old teacher! A wizard apprentice who was very popular with him pushed the door of the study open a crack and poked his head in. What happened? It's none of your business, get out. Fair's expression immediately changed from excitement to anger, and he turned around and quickly drove his favorite student away. He took a long breath and turned his eyes back to the picture on the crystal screen of the magic brain instrument, and suddenly felt a little emotional. This kind of excitement and fun is like a strategy game called King Chess that he often played with his tutor when he was a child. It requires both skills and luck. Each floor of this illusory magic tower has unknown dangers and monsters, as well as randomly appearing spells or magic weapon cards, which have given him unexpected opportunities to turn the tables when he was on the verge of failure. This game is more interesting than chasing after the fleeing demons and throwing fireballs in the evil Moon Mountains. Although he can only rely on the pile of tricks provided by the forum, which he usually disdains, to fight the enemy, isn't this the place where the wisdom and strategy of the caster are tested? The real strength of the caster is the brain, not the high-level spells. Fair was still in the excitement of successfully defeating the monster, and couldn't help but look back and forth at the settlement screen of his adventure game. The clearance reward for the second floor is actually a spell card with 3 choices. I have to think carefully before making a choice. At this time, the clock on the wall of the study just passed midnight. A text notice board with a golden frame popped up in the game interface of the Magic Tower. Today's Magic Tower Challenge ranking: First place Kel'Thuzad, cleared floor 5th floor. Second place Scorching Lord, cleared floor 3rd floor. 10th place Son of Flame, cleared floor 2nd floor. Fel pulled to the end of the list and barely found his forum code. Looking ahead, a lot of people were like him, struggling to stop at the 2nd floor, but because the battle time to clear the level was short, they successfully stepped on Fel's name and ranked to the front. Shit! Why can I only be ranked last? He collapsed on the backrest in frustration, secretly hating himself for being too slow to understand this adventure game. But it doesn't matter, I've always been good at striking back. Wait until I get familiar with it a few more times, hehe. But how can this Mr. Kel'Thuzad be so strong that he climbed to the 5th floor in just a few hours? Does he have any tricks to clear the level? Fel decided to contact the other party privately during the day tomorrow, and if necessary, pay a certain price to get the adventure secret as soon as possible. He took a sip of the water, then cheered up and rushed to the magic brain instrument, ready to start the adventure battle on the 3rd floor. Warm tips: the magic tower is still in the forum testing stage, and the daily opening hours are limited to 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. Is it not officially open in the forum yet? Fel thought about it and felt that it was right. After all, he was also fortunate to obtain the test qualification and was the first to experience this fun and exciting virtual adventure game. Because there were few people participating in the test, he was lucky enough to be ranked in the top 10. If a large number of forum members came in to participate after the official opening, wouldn't he be? Thinking of this, he immediately cheered up. He must not be left behind by others, especially the Frost Giant. If he was lucky enough to be on the list and stepped on his head, he didn't know what extremely sarcastic words would come out of his mouth. It doesn't matter if I can't play. I'll copy down all these professions and cards, and then find a few members who participated in the test and have good relationships with me to discuss and study together. Early in the morning, Harvey was urged to get up from his warm bed by the beeping of the message from the magic brain instrument in the study. This is a message reminder device he specially set up to facilitate him to monitor the public opinion of the spellcaster forum at all times. Now it has gradually become a magic alarm clock that he wants to smash every day. When he logged into the forum, he found that he had been pulled into a private communication channel with only 3 or 4 members in advance. How arrogant! For every hour of use of the private communication channel, you need to pay 1 point to the forum, which is equivalent to paying for a small exchange meeting every Friday. Son of Fire, has Mr. Kel'Thuzad arrived? God, I asked 3 times. Man in the mirror, I saw his code light up, he should have arrived, everyone stay calm. Harvey was a little confused. What was this group of big guys doing today? They secretly formed a small group to find him. Kel'Thuzad, sorry, I almost didn't sleep last night. I just saw your messages now. No mistakes, just post 1 content, read it on 16:9 book bar. Son of Fire, haha. I know why you didn't sleep last night. Did you stay up all night to study the way to pass the magic tower like us? Harvey suddenly remembered that he had just completed the original program framework of the tower climbing game yesterday, and then casually loaded it to the forum, and asked the system to automatically select a group of startup members to participate in bug testing. He himself just played for a while, but because he was too familiar with the game mechanism and card data, he was uninterested when he was on the 5th floor and went to the laboratory to continue to deal with other things. Thinking of this, Harvey immediately opened the game interface and found that the game leaderboard had 9 member codes neatly arranged, and his name was at the top of the list. Okay, I know why they are so anxious to find me. This group of internet addicts, middle-aged and elderly people, are trying to get the game speed pass strategy from me. Magic Shield at Kel'Thuzad, I'll ask you straight to the point, how did you quickly defeat those perverted monsters and climb to the 5th floor in just a few hours? The man in the mirror, this also belongs to knowledge sharing. Mr. Kel'Thuzad can make requests and we will satisfy them together. Kel'Thuzad, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think this is knowledge worth keeping secret or exchanging for benefits. The Tower of Magic is just a virtual adventure game launched by the forum. Everyone participates just to kill time and relieve the fatigue and boredom brought by academic research. Son of Fire, how can you think so? This is obviously not just a game. Playing king chess and circle dog fighting, which are the things that ordinary people are addicted to, are called games. The Tower of Magic is a test of the wisdom and decision-making of the caster, but it is packaged as a game on the surface. Harvey covered his face speechlessly. You really think too much. I just want to make a game to kill my time, and by the way, use the random card draw Krypton Gold method to squeeze the forum points you have worked hard to accumulate. It seems that when the game is officially launched, it is really necessary to consider the anti-addiction system. We can't indulge this group of internet addicts who have never seen the world. Chapter 118. In addition to the need for technology, the real fun of the game is luck and choice. It itself is a collection of various random and changes. The Quinn brothers pointed to the crystal screen of their magic brain instrument, and showed off to Fran McCorlin with a complacent expression. After the official version of the Magic Tower was launched, we spent all night to rush from the bottom of the tower to the 6th floor. How about it? The alchemist's understanding and use of magic cards is no better than that of you orthodox spellcasters, isn't it bad? Of course, Fran doesn't want to get too entangled with these 2 brothers on this issue. He came to visit today to discuss with the Quinn brothers the significance of the 2 new functions that appeared in the official version of Magic Tower. When this extremely complex card game was officially launched and fully opened to the forum, the content was several times more complicated than the beta version. In addition to arcane, elements, bloodline, nature, death, and destiny, an additional structural profession representing alchemists was added, and 7 extraordinary profession factions were finally formed in contrast to reality. Moreover, in the official version, a new function called Card Editor appears, allowing players participating in the game to freely and flexibly choose and combine their own decks. This feature has been well received by forum members because everyone has complained about one problem in the beta version, that is, among the decks you can choose, only the lowest level magic of each profession can occasionally climb the tower during the battle, randomly trigger some second ring magic or low level magic weapons. This is really too weak. These advanced casters don't want to choose these cards at all. Card Editor also emphasizes one advantage, that is, the keyword one of your own decks. This means that the casters participating in this game may obtain certain powerful magic cards or magic weapons with uniqueness from battles or rewards, which simply satisfy most casters are unique. Collection habits. The three of them refocused their eyes on the crystal screen of Magic Brain Instruments, which was now showing the magic card editing interface of Magic Tower. Purchase the Magic Tower Magic Card Expansion Pack and you will have the opportunity to obtain white 1-ring magic cards, green 2-ring magic cards, blue 3-ring magic cards, and purple 4-ring magic cards and low and middle level magic tools. Fran McCorlin pointed to the card purchase instructions on the screen and looked at the Quinn brothers. The magic in these card expansion packs is random, but there is a chance to open up advanced 4-ring magic and powerful magic weapons. The tower level currently open to the tower level is only marked at the height of 30 levels, and only magic cards with the highest 5 rings are released to players. In addition to the free white basic decks for each member account when participating in the game, if you want more powerful magic cards, you need to continue to climb the giant tower, get it from the battle rewards, or buy magic cards. Packages to collect. It takes a certain amount of luck to draw a rare level card, and sometimes luck can be exchanged for probability by continuously accumulating money. In other words, the game that really makes people feel pleasant and exciting is actually the Krypton Gold Draw card. 1 point, 1 pack of magic cards, I can drive it until the end of the world. Overy muttered in a low voice. He and Ed had saved nearly 400 points in the forum during this period, and there was nothing at all. Place to spend. Harvey has been working at his desk for more than 8 hours. He has never been so diligent except in the laboratory to overcome some research topics. Sir, you have been drawing these, something complex patterns and lines in the study these days. What's the use of? Every time Reiner returns to the castle to report on his work, he can't help but get close to observe Harvey's strange behavior. Harvey dropped the quill dipped in magic solution, pointed to the stack of enchanting parchment built on the desk with a smile, and said, "You don't understand, these are all things I plan to expand on the caster forum recently. Income-generating projects." Reiner twisted a piece of parchment in confusion and found that it was painted with a wooden stick wrapped around a long serpent of flames. Is this the caster's combat weapon? Scattered on other parchment paper on the table, there are also drawing some magical instrument patterns of various shapes, as well as a large number of exaggerated renderings of low-ring magic. This is called a card skin. After I complete it all, you can also try it. The Magic Tower game does not have to be busy all day long and run around the castle and municipal departments at the same time. This will lose a lot of life. Pleasure. The alchemy life trapped in the metal shell of the soul has completely lost a large part of the senses of human beings. In addition to vision and hearing, the taste, touch, and smell used as hedonistic feedback have completely disappeared. But Harvey accidentally discovered that even so, the poorly intelligent wolf spider alchemy beasts still retain some of the original habits of being wild beasts. When they were not driven by instructions, they would be happy to go out in groups to the territory. Outside the city wall, chasing and hunting some nearby small animals will also cause group fight and play. This made Harvey more convinced that alchemy life is a unique artificial intelligence creature, not a simple cold intelligent weapon. He worked hard to create this Magic Tower game. In addition to trying to apply his research on living code on the forum, he also had a main purpose, which was to provide alchemy lives like Reiner and Asterin, create some extra sensory fun. The experience of the past life shows that using tens of thousands of dollars to exchange for a bunch of empty code data is worth a lot of money in the eyes of many players who are keen on it. This is the most attractive and terrifying part of electronic games. There are always countless people willing to pay for the virtual data typed out by a few codes, and they are still happy to do so. Servant. Bring me 2 more glasses of beer. Hurry up. The dwarf Tong Chui slammed the huge wine glass in his hand heavily on the table, and shouted to the servant who was on standby outside the study with a red face. No mistakes, 1 post, 1 content, 1 six, 1 book, 1 bar. He is not a person who drinks badly, and he has never had the habit of getting angry at his subordinates for no reason after drinking. How can my luck be so bad? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Tong Chui is sitting in front of the magic brain at this moment, operating the instrument to open the magic card expansion pack of Magic Tower. Another pack, I'm sure I can get something good. He crossed his legs comically on the reclining chair, clasped his hands together, looked up at the sky, and muttered to himself, "Father, grandfather, great-grandfather, please bless me like you did for the cave city? Can you let me get a purple spell card?" Then he clicked the purchase button for the expansion card again, and after paying 1 point, the card pack opened instantly, and 5 cards flew out of it, neatly arranged on the interface of the crystal screen. 4 white first ring spells, 1 green second ring spell. Why? These useless spells again. Chapter 119. Harvey threw the letter sent by the magic messenger into the waste paper pile, folded up the reply he had just written, snapped his fingers to summon a new messenger, and watched it flap its wings and fly out of the window on the second floor of the castle. This was the third time he had replied to George Santos, vice president of the Dragonstone Chamber of Commerce, who wanted to visit the Pioneer Territory. With his secretive appearance, it was no wonder that Earl Figan of Grizzly Castle wanted to take the blame for himself. If it were any outsider who knew the inside story, he would probably suspect that Harvey's behavior of leaving the southern border and hiding in the northern Pioneer Territory was to cover up some of his unspeakable evil deeds. At the moment, Earl Figan was scared by the magic sniper he sent, and soon received a joint investigation from the Royal Capital Noble Court Council and the Federation. Although the victim of this incident was still Harvey, it seemed that his existence was once again completely ignored. The royal nobles and magic politicians were interested in the interest disputes and armed conflicts between the nobles and the spellcasters involved in this incident. They could gain a lot of benefits to their own camp through continuous wrangling. As for the real victims, they were not from any great wizard family, nor were they the proud disciples of some high-ranking members of the Federation. They could just send a letter to appease them. Since it was not the first time that Harvey was attacked innocently, the letter of comfort sent this time also came with a small box of neatly stacked intermediate magic stones. This was the best appeasement treatment the Federation had given to the Necromancer in many years. Guards, inform Mr. Astalin that I am going to the municipal department for inspection. Don't notify them in advance, we will go directly. The young soldier who stood at the door of the study every day and was conscientiously responsible for playing the role of a marble statue was suddenly stunned. This was the first time he received a defense order from the Lord to go out officially. Usually, the Lord never leaves his house. Most of the time, he orders his alchemy servants to make tea and add water for him, or go to the kitchen to get some pastries for midnight snacks. The soldier put his feet together, raised his fists and clenched his chest, turned around and left the study with a slightly red face, and went downstairs to inform the chief consultant Mr. Astalin, who was busy in the laboratory. When Harvey really stepped out of the main gate of the castle, he was immediately startled by the defense soldiers waiting at the door. 12 tall and strong defense soldiers, carrying magic guns, skillfully surrounded him. The average height of 1.8 meters formed a human wall on all sides, making Harvey, who was slightly shorter, unable to see the road ahead clearly. The team was followed by 2 huge bear-shaped alchemy beasts, spewing thick white steam while following the action instructions issued by the soldiers with heavy steps. Through the gaps in the human wall, Harvey could barely see 2 soldiers holding guns leading the way and loudly driving away the crowd that was too close on the street. When the Lord is out, civilians should get out of the way immediately. Do not try to get close, or you will be arrested on the spot. Harvey closed his eyes speechlessly, not enjoying the local emperor treatment at all. But he also understood the various overreactions and behaviors of these soldiers who were responsible for their personal safety. After all, the fact that someone sneaked into the territory and almost shot him dead really left many loyal people with psychological trauma. If we develop and manufacture the alchemy carriage as soon as possible, we can avoid such an embarrassing situation again. It doesn't matter if the carriage is not bulletproof, Harvey can be bulletproof himself. A group of people came to the municipal center next to the market area in a mighty manner, and they found that a row of people had already stood at the entrance of the 2-story municipal department, looking forward to the Lord's visit. Now, Harvey's plan of secret visit or surprise inspection has been ruined. This is his first time to come to the municipal center. When this core organization responsible for the daily management of the territory was just established, Harvey was very excited and drew the blueprint of this 2-story cement building by hand. Reiner went to the mining area in the southwest of the territory to handle work today. There were only 2 assistants who had been working with him for a long time in the busy municipal center, who were tremblingly responsible for the inspection and reception of the Lord. Harvey looked at these 2 people and felt a little familiar. After asking, he found out that they were both the first batch of refugees rescued by Pierce and returned to the territory. Compared with the large number of poor people who joined the territory in an endless stream later, Reiner obviously trusted and valued these veteran refugees who joined the territory at the beginning. Their identities were clean and they had no connection with the nobles in the southern border. Whether it was Lord Harvey or Reiner, Pierce, and others, they had saved the lives of these 20 people, not to mention that they were provided with free treatment, food, and shelter later, which was enough to make them grateful and loyal to the Lord for a long time. Therefore, with Harvey's tacit consent, Reiner arranged all of them to various important management and production institutions in the territory, becoming the first batch of powerful officials. The two who received Harvey were relatively excellent students in the night literacy school that Stalin insisted on, so Reiner directly asked them to follow him and handle some important management affairs. Lord, we have set up a citizen affairs reception office in the lobby on the first floor, which is responsible for handling all daily management work in the territory. The middle-aged official named Orange Peel introduced to Harvey in a clear and orderly manner. This working group is specifically responsible for the reception and identity review of refugees. This working group is responsible for the management of the convenience market, and this working group is responsible for all factory production projects in the territory. There is no mistake. 1619, 1 book, a book. Harvey asked casually while listening to the report, where is the department responsible for free education and medical care? Another young official who was slightly silent immediately responded, adults, all upstairs, colleagues from the medical and educational groups prefer a quiet working environment, and they rarely stay in the municipal department on weekdays, most of them I was in schools and medical hospitals at the time. Harvey nodded, saying that he was very satisfied with this office model. After all, I just mentioned a few simple ideas at the beginning, but I didn't expect that Astarin and Reiner could make it so well organized. I have to say that the alchemy life in an absolutely rational mode is to deal with government affairs and assist in management work. The best candidate. Your commander, General Reiner, have you mentioned to you the new order I issued recently? Harvey stopped, stood in the middle of the hall, still surrounded by soldiers. Orange peeled his head in through the gap between the two strong soldiers with a little difficulty, and replied with a smile on his face, Lord, General Reina announced to us 3 days ago, there is something about a separate inspection department is set up to be responsible for the inspection of various illegal and disorderly incidents in the territory. The younger officials also rushed into the crowd in a daze and added calmly, Sir, the new inspection department office has been assigned to the Ministry of Construction to select the site. Now there is only the issue of department naming. Look. Harvey raised his hand a little embarrassedly and separated the soldiers surrounding him, I have already thought about it. The new department is called the Police Department. Chapter 120. The Jackdaw town in the early morning was still covered by mist, and the cold air brought by the winter snow was about to melt made the whole town look particularly deserted. A caravan slowly drove out of the town and headed towards a hunter village nearest to the foot of Jack Drift. The leader of the caravan was sitting in the four-wheeled carriage and saw a few people standing at the entrance of the village standing on tiptoe to them. President George Santos. I didn't expect you to arrive so early. The middle-aged man in charge stepped forward and smiled and greeted. The vice president of the Longshi Chamber of Commerce, with a round cheek and a slightly swollen figure, shook his head and smiled bitterly, Master Harvey. No, Lord Harvey refused my request to go to the pioneer leader, but contacted me to come to the warehouse to get to you. Meet. The business environment in the past is not as safe and convenient as in later generations. Most caravans with weak defense forces dare not easily cross the boundaries of their countries and run around to travel around. Large chambers of commerce that are famous in the southern continent like the Dragonstone Chamber of Commerce are rare, mainly because they provide for a bloodline warrior bodyguard team and have close ties with the nobles and federations of various countries. The middle-aged man smiled unabated at all, and he invited Santos to enter the warehouse for a rest. At the same time, he whispered in a mysterious manner, Mr. Harvey invites you to come, so there are naturally good things to share with you. After all, you are the real expert in doing business and making money. Santos took a sip of warm ale and said with a reserved attitude, the relationship between Lord Harvey and our Chamber of Commerce is not to be said, but if it is a business like the last soap, I think it is more appropriate to negotiate in person. After all, the profit is high and you need to repeated discussions on signing a contract. The middle-aged man laughed and said, the wasteland is bitter and cold. You also know that Lord Harvey is a delicate spellcaster. I'm so tired recently that I've been suffering from wind and cold. I'm so sent as a representative. He turned around and nodded slightly to the young man in the warehouse. The other party immediately brought a wooden box and placed it on the table in front of the two. After the man opened it, he exposed the 2 magic stones in the shadows placed inside. Magic stone? What does this mean? Lord Harvey bought the magic stone from me a few days ago. Why do you want to sell it to me in reverse now? Santos frowned slightly and asked in confusion. The magic stone business involves violating the monopoly interests of the Federation. Generally, they will not easily get involved, unless it is a high-priced acquisition like Harvey and the total volume is small. After all, any large chamber of commerce has some special things in private smuggling channels. No, if it was just a magic stone, I wouldn't have troubled you to go there. The middle-aged man gently pinched one of them and showed the video records it carried to Santos. Please see. It was a metal box-like creation placed on the ground. The whole blackness seemed to be assembled by multiple mechanical parts. A man with a mechanic stood beside it, skillfully pulling a long-handled joystick on the box. The huge and heavy metal box immediately roared, and a rich white steam spewed out from the top, and then a huge roulette installed on its surface began to rotate slowly. The oil-immersed belt attached to it quickly rotates, pulling a huge mine cart half a person tall beside it, approaching the machine at an extremely fast speed. Is this an alchemy creation? The latest invention of the Exploration Society. The knowledgeable vice president of the Longxi Chamber of Commerce opened his eyes wide and looked at the image, slightly surprised. Then he smiled slightly jokingly. Lord Harvey doesn't want to use this thing to replace the manpower of the mine, right? Our Chamber of Commerce also has several well-run mines in Orland, which can hire a miner. How much does it cost? He pointed to the metal machine in the picture. Purchasing an alchemy creation from the secret society is probably enough to pay hundreds of miners for several years' salary. This is simply inappropriate in terms of cost. The middle-aged man did not immediately argue, but still smiled and added warm ale to his wine glass. Then he asked slowly, President Santos, don't know how much is the price of the alchemy creature of the secret society. Santos thought for a while and said cautiously, conservatively, it will cost at least £500, and there are many troubles such as subsequent maintenance. Moreover, this kind of machine that can replace human labor and work without sleep, can't be bought with money. He whispered a little disgusted, Sir Harvey also knows that the secret society is a group of alchemists who work on relationships. The middle-aged man did not respond, but instead picked up another magic stone to display the video content to Santos. In this picture, Santos finally saw Harvey himself. President Santos. How are you doing recently? In the picture, Harvey sat in a study-style room with 2 thick dark circles that suited his identity as a spellcaster. I'm sorry I can't invite you to my territory. You have been traveling back and forth between Grizzlies and DOS recently, and I'm afraid I've heard of it. I was attacked by armed aristocrats some time ago. You should have watched the mechanical creations I want to show you, right? How about it? It can replace human transport and achieve powerful machines that can work sleeplessly all day long. Do you think there will be commercial prospects? Santos curled his lips without a trace and said to himself, it is indeed a mechanical creation that is comparable to the technical level of the Exploration Society, but the cost is probably not as good as hiring a miner directly. Harvey in the video still smiled and continued, I think you must be considering the cost and subsequent maintenance issues, right? As far as I know, the price of exploring similar alchemy creatures will probably not be less than 300 gold pounds. And they shouldn't be able to achieve mass production. Then, if I sincerely tell you that the machine I made is only 1/5 of the price of the machine produced by the secret society, and there is no need to worry about subsequent repairs and maintenance issues, will you choose to pay for it? Those large southern areas of China, do the mine owners of the mine think it's worth the money? There is no mistake. 1619, one book, a book. Santos suddenly opened his eyes wide and stood up from his chair. What? 100 gold pounds per unit? Alchemy creatures that can replace manpower and complete transportation work, can they be purchased at such a cheap price? He turned his head in disbelief to the middle-aged man in charge of the warehouse. Lord Harvey, aren't you kidding me, right? The other party seemed to have expected his expression and attitude. President Santos, Lord has always been happy to work with you. When will you have this leisure to enjoy you? This kind of alchemy machine is not easy to manufacture, and the cast iron and various parts required are also very laborious. It is priced at 120 gold pounds, which is actually a franchise price given only for you, a high-quality partner. Its operation is very simple and its power source is quite cheap. A low-level magic stone can keep it working for more than 12 hours. You can calculate how much operating costs it can save for the mine after replacing manpower. The middle-aged man slowed down and took a sip of ale with Santos' anxious expression on his face, then continued to introduce. Also, the application scenario of this kind of machine is not just a mine, it can also replace windmills and water wheels, grind wheat flour in the mill, and hoist various huge goods in the large cargo warehouses in your Chamber of Commerce and complete the lifting and loading of various large goods in haul. Santos could no longer sit still and interrupted the other party's endless words. Lord Harvey has made so many such machines, and I want to buy them all.